Hunter x Hunter, start with the prison power. Chapter 21. Lin, who was immersed in practice, had no idea that he had been clearly arranged by Bisji until he received a call from Bisji. Lin, the association has agreed to your request, but it has also put forward conditions. Bisguy said. Lin said with some confusion, what conditions? Bisguy smiled and said, it's not a very difficult condition. It's just that the president wants you to take the Hunter exam next year. Hearing this, Lin touched his chin and said, that's right. After all, he is the exclusive mind killer of the Hunter Association. If he is not a professional hunter, it would be somewhat unjustifiable. Okay. It's settled then. I'm going to look for gems. As for the prisoners, you can talk to the president after you finish the exam. After saying this, Bisguy hung up the phone, and the outcome of this incident was completely expected for Lin. Time passed slowly, and in a blink of an eye it was time for the duel with Hisoka. During this time, En was completely immersed in training and even made several preparations for this battle. Sky Arena 217th floor. The huge arena on the floor was full of people. After all, Lin and Hisoka were not unknown people. For the arena, the more such battles, the better. You can earn a lot of money from just the tickets. Standing at the edge of the ring, Lin looked toward the audience and saw the figures of Ford and Yungu's master and apprentice. Although Lin had already said in advance that this was not a battle that must be won, the three of them still came to the scene to cheer for Lin. After the host's explanation, Lin and Hisoka looked at each other from afar. Aren't you pretending? Hisoka. Rin looked at Hisoka expressionlessly and said. Pretend? Ever since you fought with Hwashi Dolyuan, I can feel that you are very strong, and I can even feel some of the same kind of aura. Hisoka took out a few cards and started playing with them, his tone seemed very relaxed. Swish. Swish. Just when he was about to ask Hisoka what similar meant, a few cards flew out of Hisoka's hand. You must be vigilant when fighting Hisoka. Lin will not forget Hisoka's title of magician. The moment the card flew out, Lin had already seen the path of the card. Easily dodging the cards, Lin was just about to get close to fight Hisoka when he suddenly felt a sound of breaking wind coming from behind. Without any hesitation, Lin jumped to the left. After a closer look, it turned out that the cards were flying back from behind Lin. Looking at it with condensation, the cards are not controlled by Hisoka's telekinesis ability Retractable Love, but Hisoka can easily control the direction of the cards, and the power will not be reduced. At this moment, Lin thought of Hisoka's other ability, Frivolous Illusion, and the doubts in front of him were instantly solved. Seeing several cards flying towards him again under Hisoka's control, Lin secretly thought, these cards must be dealt with. After making up his mind, his thoughts gathered in Lin's hands. Just as the cards were about to fly in front of Lin, Lin fired a few bullets and easily shattered the cards in front of him. This is how Lin has been studying the use of Chunin in the past few days. Although it is a release ability, the power produced by Lin with the prison controller is equivalent to 100% of the power of a release ability user. It is very suitable to make up for Lin's lack of long-range attack methods, and the power can be controlled at will according to the amount of mind injected into it. Oh! Release the element? I thought you would hide like a mouse for a while. Hisoka's eyes were filled with excitement, and the expression on his face became even more excited. He raised his hand and a few more cards flew out. Rin repeated his old trick, knocking down the cards with a few telekinetic bullets, but Hisoka had already launched a close attack at Rin the moment he knocked down the cards. Are the cards just a feint? Rin did not panic. Close combat has always been Rin's strength, but he knew better that Hisoka's close combat was not bad either. Bang! Bang! In a series of fights, Lin was in a defensive state. It wasn't that Lin didn't want to attack, but Hisoka's attacks were not only powerful, but also very fast, and every move he made was very tricky. Boom! Rin, who was tired of fighting, was knocked out by Hisoka's punch. Before he landed, he heard Hisoka say, "Come back." In an instant, Lin's body flew in the direction of Hisoka. In Lin's eyes, the moment Hisoka was knocked away, Hisoka attached flexible love to his face. Rin, who was pulled back, had no time to resolve this situation, so he could only use strength and crossed his arms to defend against Hisoka's punch. Boom! Although he used Jian to resist the punch, Lin was still injured and his arms were a little numb. However, Hisoka's telekinesis ability has not yet been released, and the flexible love is still on Lin's face. Under Hisoka's control, Lin was thrown around several times by the chewing gum-like mental energy. When he flew towards Hisoka again, he was already wrapped in purple mental energy and became twisted. Looking at Hisoka's right hand raised into a fist, Lin secretly thought, "You must not be pulled back, otherwise there will be no room to fight back." Ziobai. Dragon Pattern Mode. During the flight to Zisuo, a ball of thought energy flew out of Lin's body, forming the appearance of Xiaobai. In an instant, Xiaobai and Lin merged together. If you peel off Lin's clothes, you can clearly see a white dragon pattern on Lin's heart. The moment Xiaobai turned into a dragon pattern, the purple thought energy clinging to Lin was absorbed by Xiaobai. Taking advantage of Hisoka's momentum, Rin punched Hisoka directly. Hard. Including Lin's all-out blow that abandoned his defense, Hisoka, who originally thought Lin couldn't break away, had no time to dodge and could only defend himself. Although he defended Lin's attack, Hisoka was still knocked back half a meter by this powerful punch. What a magical ability, similar to eliminating thoughts. Hisoka lowered his arms, the expression on his face gradually changed. However, Hisoka in this state gave Lin an even stronger sense of crisis, and he understood that Hisoka was entering a state. "Come on. Let me see what kind of surprises you can bring me. Let's shed blood together." With an evil smile, Hisoka rushed towards Lin at an extremely fast speed. The stronger power and faster speed made the two men's attacks become intense. Zhixi in the stand stared intently at the two people fighting together, and said in shock, "Is this really a person who has only studied recitation for half a year? How can he be so strong? There may not be one genius among hundreds of millions of people, so strong. Really? So strong?" Yungu, who was on the side, naturally heard Zhixi's muttering to himself, and thought to himself, "Fortunately, Lin is not a person with evil intentions, and Lin was born to rely on telekinesis. Just watch Zhixi. As long as Lin exists, you will never be proud or lose your way." Bang! Bang! In the fierce fight, both Rin and Hisoka suffered certain injuries to each other. During the battle, Rin gradually began to forget himself. As a swordsman, Lin didn't like this kind of fist-to-flesh fighting very much. I don't know when he started to feel this kind of fighting with all his strength. Suddenly, he felt inexplicably happy. During the battle, Hisoka saw Lin's expression, and his heart became more and more happy, and the intensity of his attacks continued to increase. And Lin's control of his mind energy also prevented him from falling into a disadvantage, and the battle between the two became anxious for a while. Chapter 22. Boom! Click! Click! The two fists collided and the two people who were stuck in a stalemate were forced to separate. "Ryan, do you understand how wonderful this feeling is? It turns out that we are the same kind." Hisoka's right arm was hanging in front of him, obviously broken by the collision. Lin was not feeling well at this time. His arm was broken due to the punch they had just exchanged. However, under Xiaobai's treatment, the fracture was healed instantly. Hisoka, who had broken his arm at this moment, was obviously at a disadvantage. "Hisoka, you are right, but our directions are different," Rin said as he moved his newly recovered left arm. Hisoka looked a little confused and said, "What's different?" "The same breath, the same state, and you're thirsty for blood now, right? I enjoy fighting, I don't deny this, but what I enjoy is the feeling of wielding a knife against the strong and breaking through oneself, not the fighting that you like. This is the essential difference between us." Then, Lin changed his voice and said, "We have been fighting for a long time, one move will determine the outcome." After speaking, Lin began to slowly mobilize the qi of his mind, and slowly gathered the qi in his right hand. Seeing Lin's actions, Hisoka's expression became solemn and excited, but he did not refuse Lin's proposal. With his current physical strength, he could not continue the high-intensity battle for long. SHH! SHH! The two of them rushed towards each other as fast as they could, almost to the point of being out of sight. Strength will produce ultimate speed, and speed will produce ultimate power. Both of them tried their best at this moment. Boom! When Hisoka reached Lin's attack range, Lin didn't hesitate at all and punched out with all his strength. But what Lin didn't expect was that Hisoka used his remaining left arm to protect his vital parts and forcefully received Lin's punch. The powerful force caused Hisoka to be knocked away. At this moment, Lin was a little confused and didn't understand what Hisoka's purpose was. But during the process of being knocked away, Hisoka smiled as if his treacherous plan had succeeded. Not good. An inexplicable sense of crisis lingered in Lin's heart. With his brain spinning rapidly, Lin suddenly thought of something and looked at Hisoka with condensation. Hisoka's feet were covered with purple telepathy, and they stretched longer and longer. It was Hisoka's telekinesis ability, flexible love. No. You were careless. The moment Lin reacted, the gummy energy was stretched to the extreme, causing Hisoka to be bounced back with a stronger force, so fast that Lin couldn't avoid it at all. Let's have a showdown. Lin. Hisoka roared and punched Lin, his face showing his dedication to victory. Ziobai. Burst mode. Boom. The moment Hisoka punched out, extremely powerful mental energy erupted from Lin's body. A large amount of life essence erupted, which significantly improved various attributes of Lin's body, and Lin's hair flew up due to this thought. Is this such a strong thought? Yungu's eyes widened. He was so shocked by this powerful thought energy that his glasses almost fell off. Boom! Boom! The two of them were knocked out at the same time and hit the guardrails on both sides of the ring. However, Lin seemed to be unscathed, while Hisoka, apart from his fallen body, still had an arm remaining beside him. Seeing the situation like this, the host and the referee discussed it. After all, both sides were knocked out of the field. After a period of deliberation, the host stood on the ring and said, both players were knocked out of the field at the same time, so this duel was decided after discussion by the referee. A draw. As the host's voice fell, mourning filled the venue, and all kinds of curses could be heard. A draw means in the audience's mind that the dealer kills all. When the referee announced the result, Rin and Hisoka were already carried to the infirmary by the Sky Arena medical staff. Lying on the stretcher, Lin's body seemed to be intact, but he knew his own affairs, and his frown from time to time proved that Lin's current situation was not very good. It hurts. There is no part of my body that does not hurt, and the price of using burst mode is not light. Although Lin complained about the miserable situation of using burst mode, Kexiang was also really fragrant. The feeling that all the attributes of the body were increased by at least 0.5 times is still unforgettable to this day. And this is not the case where Lin explodes with all his strength. It's not that Lin doesn't want to explode with all his strength, but that he simply doesn't dare. Sure enough, although my body is already strong under the influence of the infinite body, it is not enough to support the power of the essence of life. Thinking of the principle of burst mode, Lin felt a little relieved at this moment. After all, the quality of life essence was too high. Just like the principle that a balloon can hold a limited amount of gas, and if too much gas is injected, the balloon will explode, and the balloon is now equivalent to Rin's body. Enduring the pain, Lin was still analyzing the problems in his body while lying on the stretcher. I didn't expect that Hisoka didn't follow martial ethics. He took advantage of me to hit all the energy and tricked me without using Ning. I must pay attention to it in the future. After the injury heals, you must look for high-quality food. After all, in this world, money can only buy so many things. While Lin was thinking, the medical staff had already carried Lin to the infirmary. How is your health? Rin. The three young people who had been waiting in the infirmary saw Lin being carried in and immediately surrounded him. Looking at Yungu and others who were surrounding him and caring about him, Lin felt warm in his heart and said, I'm fine, I'm just a little exhausted. I'll be fine after 2 days of rest. Then Lin looked at the doctor who was about to move forward to check the body and said, no need to check, I am not injured. The doctor nodded, without saying a word, and left in a hurry with the nurse. After all, there were too many wounded people in the Sky Arena. The doctor would not be persistent if the wounded said there was no need for examination. After hearing what Lin said, the worries of the three people disappeared instantly and they started talking in Lin's ear. Lien, it was a good fight. I didn't expect you to reach this level in just half a year. Yes. Uncle Lin, he was too strong, really too strong. At that time, I wished it was me standing in the ring. It is indeed Teacher Lin's victory. I will definitely challenge Hisoka next time to avenge the previous battle. Listening to the chatter of the three people, Lin felt a very relieved feeling in his heart. In this feeling, the fatigue after the battle came up, making his eyes heavier and heavier, and he fell asleep instantly. Yungu saw that Lin had fallen asleep and said softly, Huashido Lang, you stay here to take care of Lin, we will go back first. Okay, Yung acting normal school. In response to Yungu's call, Hua Shidolang sat in front of Lin's bed and waited quietly for Lin to wake up. Chapter 23. 2 days later, in room 2103 of the Sky Arena. After 2 days of recovery, the pain in Rin's body has gradually subsided. Dong! Dong! There was a knock on the door, and Lin, who was reading a book, said, "Come in, the door is unlocked." "Lien, the things you requested have been prepared and piled up in the company's warehouse." The person who came was none other than Ford. After Lin woke up 2 days ago, he was given a task to purchase a large amount of daily necessities and outdoor supplies. Although Ford didn't know what Lin wanted these things for, he didn't ask too many questions. He just wanted to get things done. It was the rule of an agent not to ask too many questions and just do things. Putting the books in his hands in the pile, Lin looked at Ford in front of him and said, "Thank you, Ford, these books are very useful. I will leave here in 2 days. I will trouble you about the company's affairs. Be safe out there, and call me if you need anything." After Ford learned the news that Lin was leaving 2 days ago, although he was a little reluctant to leave, he couldn't help but feel a little worried. Seemingly understanding what Ford was thinking, Lin comforted him, "Don't worry, Ford, I'm just going on a trip." Then Lin changed his voice and said, "While I'm away, help me collect information on the Collier family." The Collier family, that famous gangster. Ford was a little surprised. He really couldn't imagine the use of Lin's investigation of the Collier family, but he also knew that he didn't need to understand too much, he just needed to do what Lin told him. "Yes. Just collect as much information as possible." "I understand, then I'll get to work first." After saying that, Ford left the Sky Arena tower and walked towards the company. "Next, it depends on whether you can meet the needs." Looking at the books on the table, Lin placed his eyes on a map. In the afternoon, Lin arrived at the company's warehouse. Looking at the supplies, Lin showed a satisfied smile. While sorting the items, he put them into the prison's storage room. After packing up the things in the warehouse and telling Ford, Lin set off back to the Sky Arena. However, what Lin didn't expect was that he met Hisoka, who was waiting at the door of the exclusive room on the 201st floor. "Finally back? I've been waiting for you for a long time." Hisoka's words seemed careless, but there was still a sense of urgency. Looking at Hisoka, who had a broken arm, Rin asked, "What's the matter?" The expression on his face was a little strange. Hisoka licked his lips and said, "When will we have another fight? I can't wait." Ignoring Hisoka's invitation to fight, Lin glanced at Hisoka's broken arm and said, "At least reattach the arm, right?" Looking at his broken arm casually, Hisoka looked even more impatient and said, "The arm will be reattached tomorrow. Now it depends on when you have time." After taking a look at Hisoka's condition, Lin knew that if he didn't give this fighting maniac an answer today, he would definitely not give up. Then Lin thought for a moment and had an idea in his mind, and said calmly, "Fighting is no problem, but I have a condition." "What conditions?" Hisoka replied. Lin rubbed his chin and said, "Well, I haven't thought about it yet. I will tell you when I think about it. Of course, it is definitely something you can do. How about we fight again next week?" Seeing that Lin had put forward the conditions, Hisoka agreed without thinking. "Next week? I'm leaving the Sky Arena soon. I don't have time." "Are you kidding me?" Hisoka was a little impatient. After all, he could feel that pleasure again soon, so how could he let it slip away? As Hisoka's eyes gradually became dangerous, Lin said helplessly, "Let's do this. Let's make an agreement. Our strengths are almost the same now, so we don't have any expectations for another match. And I do have something important to leave, and I have to take the hunter exam at the end of the year. Why don't we wait until the hunter exam is over and then come here to fight again? This period is also a time for us to improve each other's strength." Seeing Hisoka thoughtfully, Lin said seductively, "During this period, we will all have certain breakthroughs. Just like aged red wine, it will definitely be very delicious." After listening to Lin's words, Hisoka didn't know what he thought of. The body trembled slightly. Seeing Hisoka's behavior, Lin thought to himself, "It's done. I'm really looking forward to it." Hisoka, with a very expectant expression on his face, threw a playing card to Lin and turned around to leave without saying anything. Looking at the playing card Hisoka threw over, there was a series of phone numbers written on it, and he knew without even thinking about it that it was Hisoka's contact information. Looking at the direction Hisoka was leaving, Lin thought to himself, what a pure pervert. 2 days later, Rin left the Sky Arena after he was ready. Originally, Lin had prepared everything, but remembering Xiaobai who was still sleeping, he had no choice but to postpone the trip. The airship airport is one of the features of the hunter world. Lin had always wanted to try the feeling of riding an airship before, but due to being hunted and practicing, he never had the chance. At this moment, Lin was standing on the terrace of the airship, feeling the breeze blowing on his cheeks. The breath of the sky made him look forward to the future more and more. Rin's destination for this trip is the NGL Autonomous Country, a country in the Mitna Federation, one of the 6 continents. The NGL Autonomous Country is one of the countries harmed by the Ant King's Legion in the original work. It is located in the Balasa Islands, at the western end of the Mitna Federation. This country aims to protect nature, so its science and technology is not developed. Although it has abandoned technology, the NGK Autonomous Country is not poor. The annual output in the forest and the money obtained from planned hunting of prey are enough for the royal family and citizens of this country to live a prosperous life. Therefore, in order to not affect the operation of the country, protect wild animals, and prevent poachers from killing them at will, which will cause the collapse of the ecosystem within the reserve, the kingdom has very strict searches for people entering the country. Therefore, NGL Autonomous Country is also known as one of the most difficult countries to enter. The purpose of Lin's trip was to enter a primeval forest in the NGL Autonomous Country, and it was the only forest allowed to be explored. According to the information collected by Lin, the forest is called Tommy's Forest and is located on the border of the NGL Autonomous Country. There are countless dangers inside, and it is one of the only areas that the country's royal family allows adventurers to explore. Tommy is the name of the local demon. According to data, the mortality rate in that forest is as high as 85%. In order to prevent the dangerous species inside from escaping, a large number of troops are stationed around Tommy's forest. To enter, you must obtain permission from the local royal family. License and pay a considerable fee. Even under such harsh conditions, there are still many people flocking to it, including many professional hunters. It is said that there are many undiscovered rare plants, special ingredients, and endangered animals in the forest. Chapter 24. It takes 6 days to travel from the Republic of Patokia to the NGL Autonomous Country. After the initial curiosity, time has become boring to Lin. After all, except for the control room, Lin has been to every place he can go on the airship. In the next few days, except for daily needs, Lin locked himself in his room to strengthen his practice of mindfulness. Dib. Dib. Looking at the beeping mobile phone, Lin didn't recognize the phone on it, but this did not prevent the call from being connected. Hello. Is this Mr. Lin? The tone on the other side of the phone was very polite, which made Lin very curious about who called him. You are? Lin asked doubtfully. Mr. Lin, I am President Netaro's secretary, Beanman. Now the guild has a very important task that requires your help. After hearing the other party's identity, Lin remembered that he was still the exclusive mind killer of the Hunter Association. What's up? Mr. Lin, the reward for this task is very generous. It was assigned to you by President Netaro himself. Hearing what the bean-faced man said, Lin thought to himself, as expected of the president's right-hand man, this method is extraordinary. In Lin's view, the bean-faced man did not tell him what the task was, but brought out the reward and nitro, telling Lin that he had to go ahead, and also told him in a subtle way that the president attached great importance to this matter. In terms of remuneration, Lin can raise whatever he wants within the scope of what the other party can bear. Thinking of this, Lin became curious about this mission. It's like this. 2 days ago, the eldest son of the Beat Dyke family, Illumi Beat Dyke, made a mistake while performing his mission. Although I killed the target, I was injured by the thought tool of the afterlife. By the time I returned to Kuchula Mountain, it had been deeply eroded by the thought of the afterlife. Half an hour ago, the Haka family beat the enemy and asked for help from the Hunter Guild. And promised to give corresponding rewards. As the bean-faced man explained, Lin had a clear understanding of the ins and outs of the matter. In that case, this matter is related to President Netaro. President Netaro is by your side now, right? Although bean-faced man's words were perfect, Lin still discovered a problem. The strange thing was that the call came from bean-faced man, not Nitro. After Lin finished speaking, there was silence on the other end of the phone, as if he was thinking about how to reply. Come on. Give me the phone. President, I'm sorry. Hearing this sound, Lin thought to himself, the bet was right. Lin? I'm Nitro. Although Nitro's voice sounded very old, Lin could hear a sense of power, which is a characteristic that can only appear when martial arts practitioners reach a certain level. Hello, leader, this is my first call. I'm Ryan Pester. Lin spoke very politely, and of course it was not okay to be rude. The person on the other end of the phone was his biggest supporter. Nitro wondered, how did you know I was around? Hearing this, Lin replied respectfully, although Domian said that you personally appointed him, he told me in the way of the Hunter Association that it is obvious that the person who can attract such attention from the president must be directly found by the beaten enemy family. And you will certainly be waiting for the results. Then Lin changed his voice and said, of course this is not important. Regardless of whether it has anything to do with you or not, I will not refuse, but I want to make a request. Ha! 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 You are such a smart kid. In fact, your purpose is to talk to me on the phone. Nitro's inquiry came over the phone, and Lin didn't even think about it. Yes, after all, there are not many opportunities to talk directly to the strongest hunter, even if I am a disciple of Shinjin Ryu. I reject. Listening to Nitro's resolute voice, Lin felt a pain in his head, knowing in his heart that this was President Nitro's old naughty child. Okay. President, I am on my way to the Mitna Federation. It will take 3 days at the fastest to reach the Kurulu mountain. Can Ilmi survive beating up the enemy? Faced with Nitro's rejection, Lin was a little helpless. Although he could not meet his expectations, he could not leave a bad impression on Nitro. Business was the most important thing now. After all, Nitro's face was there. Don't underestimate the enemy family. It won't be a problem to survive for 7-8 days. Nitro warned. Lin felt that Nitro might have misunderstood, and thought to himself, you're underestimating it. President, what are you kidding me? It's just a recitation after death. If it weren't for the fear of having some terrible side effects, the Haka family would hire Nanaga to beat the enemy. Just wave your hand and you're done. Suddenly, Nitro's voice changed and he said in a playful tone, although I rejected you, I still want to hear your request. After all, the old man is very curious. Lin said seriously, President, I hope to learn Xi and Dichuanting from you. If there was anything about Nitro that made Lin envious the most, it wasn't Nitro's 100 styles of Guanyin, but the Heart Drop Chuanting. Heart Drop Chuanting is not a move, but a state. It is the result of Nitro's 10,000 gratitude straight punches every day. Although Lin didn't know much about the principle, the power in the original work was so powerful that he might have to ask Nefapet, who was knocked away after receiving a slap from Netero. Oh. It turns out you're thinking about me. Nitro said on the other end of the phone, stroking his beard. That's not impossible. Nitro thought for a while and said. Really? Party leader. Lin, who originally felt there was no hope, was almost knocked unconscious by this sudden surprise. Nitro laughed and said, let's get rid of the thoughts first. As for the rest, of course. It depends on my mood. On the other side, Lin let out a bitter smile and said to himself, as expected, it's you, old naughty boy Nitro. Mr. Lin, this is Domian. Please report to me the number of your airship. I will contact them to dock at the nearest airship airport and send a special airship to take you to Kurulu Mountain. After the bean-faced man finished speaking, Lin told the other party the number of the airship and then hung up the phone. Sitting on the bed in the airship room, Lin was a little distracted for a moment and muttered to himself, Kurulu Mountain? I didn't expect to have the opportunity to go up and take a look in person. While Lin was waiting for the airship to land and transfer, the Beating Dyke family in Kurulu Mountain held a family meeting because of the incident involving Ilmi. At this time, all the members of the Beater family were gathered together, but only the third son, Killua, was missing. Butler Wu Tong arrived in the hall and said to Silva, who was sitting in the main seat, the Hunter Association has just replied that the association's exclusive mind killer will be here within 2 days. Silva nodded and said, I understand, let's go down. The butler turned and left. Siba glanced at the people present and said, where are Kikyo and Killua? Chapter 25. Mount Kurulu is a high mountain located in the Dentora region of the Republic of Baitarkia, with an altitude of about 3,722 meters, 3,722 meters high. Except for the outer areas, the rest of the areas all belong to the private territory of the most famous killer family in the hunter world, the Beating Dyke family. At the trial gate of the Haka family, Killua was about to open the door and leave the Haka family. "Killua, where are you going?" A familiar voice came, and Killua knew it was his mother Kikyo without even thinking. As a last resort, Killua turned around and said, "Where are you not going?" "I just want to go out for a walk." Kikyo ignored Killua's words and said, "You are not allowed to go out without permission. Come back with me." Hearing this, Killua's mood was very complicated. His eldest brother who went out yesterday came back seriously injured, and his family finally relaxed their guard over him. With the idea that it would be best to never see him again, and to stay away from Ilmi forever, Killua has already prepared for him. The future life has been planned. As for the plan, Killua said that of course it was just to have fun. Unexpectedly, he was about to leave the house when he was discovered by Kikyo and kept him behind with hateful rules. "Okay. Let's go, Mom," Killua said in a nonchalant tone. Hearing this, Kikyo felt that Killua had given up the idea of running away from home, and said gently, "As expected of my good boy, he really obeys his mother's words. Let's go back." After speaking, Kikyo walked towards the direction of the manor. Killua slowly followed Kikyo, thinking to himself, "It took a lot of effort to leave. I'm tired of staying here, so I'm sorry. Don't blame me, Mom." After a few seconds of mental struggle, Killua made a decisive choice. Unexpectedly, Kikyo, who was thinking about Killua, was completely defenseless and was hit on the back of the head by Killua's hand knife. Boom! Killua knows that his mother was born in Meteor Street and is not weak in skills, so this attack is a full-strength attack and must be stunned in one blow. Looking at the fallen Kikyo, Killua breathed a sigh of relief. When he was about to escape, he suddenly saw a lot of blood flowing out of the face of his mother who fell on the ground. Turning Kikyo's body open, Killua secretly said no. It turned out that Kikyo's face hit a big rock and the injury was extremely serious. Looking at this situation, Killua said with hatred in his heart, "This has already happened. Punishment is inevitable, so you should run away." After pushing open the trial door and passing the security room at the door, Killua said to the security guard who looked at him for a moment, "Uncle, go and inform the housekeeper. My mother hit a rock and fainted." After Killua finished speaking, he rushed down the mountain. By the time the security guard reacted, he had already disappeared. "By the way, Mrs. Kikyo." The security immediately notified the butler's office and reported Killua's unauthorized departure from home. After Wu Tong from the housekeeper's room received the news, he immediately searched for Kikyo's traces. When he found Kikyo, although he was bleeding a lot, he was not in a coma. "Ah! Killua! My lovely child! You will definitely be an excellent killer in the future. It would be perfect if I could be killed." Kikyo, who was lying on the ground, kept saying similar words. "Madam, I will take you to the butler's room for treatment." Kikyo, who was in his own inner world, couldn't hear Wu Tong's words at all, and just kept talking nonsense. Wu Tong held Kikyo in his arms without changing his expression and ran towards the housekeeper's room quickly. Siba, who received the news from the housekeeper on the other side, already knew that Killua had run away from home, but he didn't have too many emotions. "Go down." Since it is Killua's ability to escape from home, he must be prepared to bear the price for his actions. Silva said to the housekeeper thoughtfully. "Damn it! That guy Killua actually dares to attack my mother. I will never let him go." Miji, who was standing aside, said angrily after the housekeeper left. Silva looked at the angry Miji and said seriously, "Shut up, Miji, take a good look at Illumiji. I called you here just to make you remember this lesson." Although Illumiji's mission was successful, he cannot a killer who protects himself has failed. Looking at Illumi lying aside, Silva murmured with some disappointment, "Is it really due to blood? It was just an assassination mission and it ended up like this." Lin didn't know about the beating of the enemy family. At this moment, Lin was preparing to transfer to the airship. Looking at the private airship in front of him, Lin couldn't help but sigh that the Hunter Association, no, the Haka family was indeed very wealthy. After a brief exchange with the captain, it was determined that this special airship would take about a day to reach the top of Mount Kurulu. Since there is no airport, the airship would try to keep the space as low as possible so that Lin could parachute down. After driving quickly for most of the day, Lin felt the novelty of an airship again. He wanted to search for one like this for a while, but after chatting with the staff, he decisively gave up the idea. The staff told Lin that ordinary people could not customize a special airship, at least only those wealthy royal family members were qualified. The customization price of such an airship is 500 billion denim, and the daily maintenance cost and annual maintenance cost are 30 billion, which makes Lin shout that he can't afford it. When Lin thought about his poverty, he thought about this mission. Not only the Hunter Association, but also the enemy Haka also owed him a favor. What should he exchange for this favor? Thinking of this, Lin's brain started to spin quickly, and he thought to himself, the favors of the Hunter Association can be put aside. After all, we are our own people. Nitro's heart drops, and he has been coveting it for a long time, so what about beating up the enemy? What are the conditions? After all, this is a life-saving transaction, and the price is too low to reflect the card of defeating the enemy Haka. After thinking for a while, Lin couldn't think of an answer for the time being. After all, there were so many good things that the Hakas had, and it was unrealistic to choose them all. It was really difficult to choose. In the blink of an eye, the airship had arrived within the range of Mount Kurulu. Lin looked at this mountain with an altitude of 3,722 meters and thought to himself, I didn't expect that one day I would be able to come here. Then the captain of the airship came to Lin and said, Sir, Mr. Lin, we have just contacted the housekeeper of the Haka family. You can parachute directly into the Haka family. Lin looked at the Kucholo mountain in front of him and said casually, Yeah, I got it. In a blink of an eye, the airship had stopped above the Kucholo mountain. Lin jumped off without saying anything. The captain saw the parachuting equipment still in his hand and hurriedly ran up and shouted, Sir Lin, you didn't bring it. It was already too late. At this moment, the captain said to the staff in despair, Contact the housekeeper of the Beat the Enemy family. Mr. Lin jumped without an umbrella. His life or death is unknown at the moment. On the other side, Lin was immersed in the feeling of landing in the air the moment he jumped. This feeling was something he could not experience in his previous life. Boom! The moment Lin landed in the air, there was a sound, and the housekeeper of the beaten guest family had already discovered where Lin landed and had been standing by. Hello, my name is Lin. Lin patted the dust on his body and said to the butler who was waiting aside. Hearing this, the butler of Beatty Haka bowed slightly and said, Welcome to Beatty Haka, Mr. Lin. Chapter 26. Looking at the housekeeper who was beating up the enemy Haka family in front of him, Lin couldn't help but thought to himself, it's true that we are beating up the enemy Haka family. Everyone is very skilled. At this time, a steward ran over, glanced at Lin, and said, Mr. Lin, the captain of the airship just called to inquire about your situation. Do you need to be informed about your safe landing? Please tell me this so that they don't worry. Lin really didn't expect this, and it caused such a misunderstanding. In the world of full-time hunters, isn't it normal to jump from a skyship? Why all the fuss? The butler who sent the message left, and another butler said, Mr. Lin, please come with me. The master of the house has been waiting for a long time. Lin nodded and followed the butler towards the castle of the Beak family. When Lin sighed that the Beak family was so big when they walked, an old man with white hair came over. The moment he saw the person coming, Lin recognized his identity from the words "one kill a day" written on his clothes. It is Ziba, the father of the enemy, Genio, the father of the enemy. In the original work, he is the ruthless man who raises his hand and releases the ceiling with one move, and uses the dragon star cluster to start the group. At that time, when he saw the scene with Long Kungzing, Lin felt that he was really strong in beating the enemy Haka. This Genio. Beating the enemy guest should be considered the peak of the family. Unexpectedly, as he learned more about it, the entire family was stronger than Genio. There are at least two more. One is Genio. Beat Dyke's father, Gge. Beat Dyke. Lin knows very little about this person. The only thing he knows clearly is that Jaeger, Nitro, and Reina Audiobook traveled to the Dark Continent when they were young. It has been proven that he can go to the Dark Continent. At that time, Jaeger was no longer weak. The other one is Maha. BDK, the ancestor of the BDK family. He is very old and his strength is unknown to Lin. The only thing that is known is that Nitro is the only person who survived from his hands, and he is estimated to be one of the pinnacle telekinesis users in this world. According to Lin's initial estimate, Maha had probably eaten Nitolami, one of the hopes of the Dark Continent. Otherwise, it would be impossible to explain why he could live for such a long time. This is not something that can be done with a strong mind. And Nanaka seems to be. Thinking of this, Lin had already walked in front of Xianyo. Young man, your strength is not weak. When I was your age, I couldn't reach the level you are now. I hope you won't make enemies of the Haka. After Jinyo finished speaking, he passed by Lin without any intention of talking too much. Is this a release of kindness? After thinking about Jinyo's words, Lin understood what they meant. A strong person like Jinyo, especially a professional like an assassin, must treat the weak like ants. When he said this to Lin, he obviously hoped that Lin would become friends with the Haka family. After all, Lin also had the status of the Hunter Association's psychic master. Thinking of this, Lin's mouth twitched, and he thought to himself, being enemies of the Haka family? Old man, when you started a group to release the Dragon Stars, I was watching by the TV. In the blink of an eye, Lin followed the butler to the castle where the enemy family was fighting. Just as Lin was about to follow the butler into the castle, there was a sound of footsteps behind Lin. The person who came was none other than Kikyo, who had been resting in the butler's room for 2 days. Originally, Kikyo could leave directly after treating the wound, but that strange maternal love made her immersed in her own world. Unexpectedly, she stayed in this immersion for 2 days. During this period, Wu Tong also reported to Silva. Silva just told Wu Tong, don't disturb Kikyo. She will wake up naturally when it's time to wake up. At this time, Lin happened to see Kikyo with his face covered with bandages, and couldn't help but be a little curious. After all, the people who were beating up the enemy Haka without work clothes, except for the enemies who sneaked in without knowing whether to live or die, were members of the family. Looking at the unfamiliar people, Lin followed the principle of talking less and did not ask. He just walked into the castle with the housekeeper. In the main hall of Beat the Enemy Haka, Siba was already waiting here when she got the news of Lin's arrival. Hello. I am Lin, the exclusive mind killer of the Hunter Association. Looking at the man with long white hair and an angular face in front of him, Lin reported his name. Well. I'm going to trouble you about Ilumi's matter. I wonder what the reward will be. Silva's tone was very calm, and although his eyes were not murderous, his years of killing people made him reveal a hint of killing inadvertently. You can put the reward aside and go treat Ilmi first, and I believe in the credibility of beating the enemy Haka. After hearing this, Siba knew that this was Lin's goodwill. It must be said that this kind of move really won his favor. Please follow me. Siba nodded, got up and led Lin towards Yamai's room. Arriving at Ilmi's room, Lin saw the woman with a bandage on her face just before entering the castle. Silva looked at the woman in front of him and said calmly, Kikyo, are you awake? How do you feel? At this time, Lin realized that this was Shiba's wife Kikyo, and he couldn't help but thought to himself, the only one who can hurt Kikyo when beating up the enemy Haka is probably Killua. He ran away from home. Ah! This feeling is really wonderful, Killua, my favorite child. Kikyo couldn't help but be excited when he thought of Killua's full-strength attack and the pain in his head. Okay. We have guests here. Silva stopped Kikyo's gaffe and introduced Lin, this is my wife Kikyo. Lin nodded, looked at Kikyo, and asked, do you need me to treat Madame's injuries? Treatment? I don't need treatment. This is a happy wound. It is a testimony of Killua's growth. I want to keep it. Kikyo's words were a little exciting, but Lin, who had read the original work, could understand Kikyo's thoughts. Everyone in the Beat Dike family has a personality bias, for example, the eldest son, Illumi. Beat Dike's younger brother control attribute, the second son, Miji. Beat Dike's two-dimensional attribute and the current Kikyo family bloodline attributes. For Kikyo, who was born in Meteor Street, being selected and brought back by the enemy Haka was a supreme honor. It was her duty to carry on the family line, and it was her mission to give birth to pure-blooded offspring for the enemy Haka. To determine whether the bloodline is pure or not, it is determined by the color of the hair. Silver hair represents the person with the highest potential of the Haka generation. And what is incredible is that in every generation of the Haka people, there will be a silver-haired member of the clan. Today, the person with the highest potential of the generation of the Haka generation is Killua, the third son. Killua is the favorite child of the Haka family, the hope for the future of the family, and the envy of the Haka generation. Therefore, although Lin could not experience Kikyo's happiness, this act of letting the child succeed in a sneak attack and injuring himself made Lin feel, the Hakas who beat the enemy are really Paranoid. Chapter 27. That's it, Kikyo. Silva interrupted Kikyo, who was about to fall into his inner world, and then said to Lin, "We can start treatment." Rin nodded, and then looked at Illumi lying on the bed. Congeal. Under Lin's inspection, Illumi's chest was wrapped in a mass of thought energy, and inside the thought energy was a dark thought of death, and the thought of death was constantly eating away at the thought energy that wrapped it, and continued to grow. "No problem, then I'll start." After confirming the intensity of the death wish, Lin nodded to Siba and said, "No problem, then I'll start." Noob. As Lin used his telekinesis ability, Xiaobai appeared in the eyes of the three people. Surge. Looking at the unfamiliar environment around him, Xiaobai was a little curious. He swayed next to Lin and kept looking around. What a strange mind beast, dragon. Warcraft type or a special species? Seeing Xiaobai summoned by Lin, Silva and Kikyo were also a little curious. In their understanding, there are many kinds of telekinesis beasts for telepathy ability users, but telepathy beasts are also divided into 3, 6, and 9 levels. The first category is animal-like telekinesis beasts, which usually do not have special abilities, have a low upper limit of abilities, and have low potential. The second category is humanoid and magical beasts. These mind beasts usually focus on assisting and attacking. The third category is elemental and special species. This type of mind beast has great potential, has extremely strong attack power, and has extremely strong plasticity and special skills. The fourth category is the mythical category. This type of mind beast may not appear for thousands of years. Legend has it that this type of mind beast has high growth potential and has many incredible abilities. The moment they saw the lean neon beast, Silva and Kikyo immediately dismissed the idea of mythology. After all, there are dragons in the hunter world, and they belong to the ranks of Warcraft. The Hakas who beat the enemy raise a flying dragon. Xiaobai, get rid of Neon. After receiving the order, Xiaobai came to Illumi's side in an instant, opened his mouth and took a gentle breath. Not only the thoughts of death in Illumi's body, but also the thought energy to suppress the thoughts of death were sucked into his mouth. Kikyo and Silva were surprised when they saw this scene. In the hunter world, anyone with a certain level of learning ability knows that eliminating thoughts is the most difficult and extremely costly task. Eliminating a certain amount of thoughts requires batches, which also proves that eliminating thoughts is not easy. When Silva first knew that the Hunter Association sent a mind-killing master, he had already prepared that it would take 2 weeks to a month to remove the mind. He didn't expect that Lean would eliminate the mind so quickly, just like the mind beast feeds on the mind-killing same. Thinking of this, Silva calmly analyzed it and said secretly, "Is it a special species with great potential?" Lean is really a person with great potential. As Xiaobai finished smoking, Illumi's body had returned to its original state except for the parts that were eroded at the beginning. "Thank you for your hard work, Xiaobai, let's go and rest." Surge. After recalling Xiaobai, Lin said to Siba with relief, "There is no problem anymore. It's just that the body was eroded before. Just rest for 2 days." Siba nodded and said, "Thank you for your hard work, let's talk about the reward next." Siba, who was just about to continue speaking, turned her eyes in the direction of Illumi and found that Illumi had woken up after finishing her recitation. "Wait a moment, Mr. Lean." Rin nodded, indicating that he understood. How long are you going to pretend to be asleep?" Silva shouted loudly. Hearing Siba's words, Illumi opened his eyes, but his eyes were a little confused at the moment, which proved that he had just regained consciousness not long ago. Siba saw Ifran's state and said, "Ifran, although your mission has been completed this time, it was a failure. A killer who cannot escape unscathed is not a qualified killer. I hope you can remember this lesson. You can be careless, but be prepared to die. Not every time you will be so lucky." After Silva finished speaking, the room fell into silence. Kikyo was silent because she couldn't interrupt Silva's words. As an outsider, Lean couldn't say anything. He could only turn his eyes away from the current matter and only wanted to pay. "Our." The silent scene fell silent for a while, and Illumi said lifelessly, "I know, this will not happen anymore. Mr. Lean, let's change places." Seeing Illumi's reaction, Siba was not prepared to say anything, and was ready to talk to Lean about remuneration. Rin nodded and followed Siba out. After Siba and Lean left, Kikyo couldn't help but said, "Ilmi, you disappoint me so much. How can you protect Kilo like this?" Illumi remained silent, and came over for a moment and asked, "Who was that person just now?" "The Hunter Association's exclusive mind killer seems to be named Lin," Kikyo replied. "Really? I will protect Xia. For sure." At this moment, Lin has followed Silva to the main hall where he beat the enemy Haka. "Sorry. Mr. Lin, I made you laugh," Siba said politely. Lin waved his hand and treated Siba's politeness indifferently without saying anything. "I don't know what reward Mr. Lin wants?" Siba asked. Lin thought for a while and said, "I need a few prisoners with telepathy abilities as the price for my elimination of telepathy. As for the rest, I just hope that the enemy Haka will not accept the task of assassinating me." Hearing this, Silva smiled with a resolute face and said, "I will contact you about the prisoners and let you choose directly. As for the assassination mission..." Siba paused and seemed to think for a while before saying, "Actually, there is a better way. I wonder if Mr. Lin would like to hear it." "Mr. Siba, just call me Lin. What's a better way?" Lin waved his hand and said. Silva's words completely aroused Lin's interest. The reward for this task of eradicating thoughts can be said to be pitiful, and the most important one is to sell a favor to beat the enemy Haka. As for asking for prisoners, part of it is because the prison needs sin points, and part of it is to find an excuse for the power of mind. Others can't see the cost of removing mind, which will eventually lead to suspicion. Under Lin's curious eyes, Silva said slowly, "Lin, become my guest to beat up my enemy Haka." In an instant, Lin almost lost his mind and asked hurriedly, "What do you mean, guest?" What Keking means is that he has the status of a core member of the Haka and can mobilize part of the Haka's resources without being controlled by the Haka. Generally speaking, he is very free, Silva explained. After listening to Silva's explanation, Lin was silent for a while. It was not because he was disgusted with being the guest who beat up the enemy's Haka, but because the surprise was too big. Although the Decay family is a killer family, they can clearly tell everyone in the hunter world that they are killers. The periphery of the territory has even become a tourist attraction. No one dares to think of Decay, or even seek revenge. It can be said to be extremely powerful. It was impossible for Lin to refuse Siba's proposal. What was the most important thing about being out there? You don't have to have the strength, but you must have the background. It can be said that resources are not important for becoming a guest minister who beats up enemy Hakas. What is important is the deterrent effect of this identity. It's scary to think about being an enemy of the Hakas. However, Lin has always believed in a saying that all gifts that far exceed the thing itself have a price that has already been clearly marked in secret. The one who beat up the enemy Haka was Nitro. He already owed Nitro a favor, and he only needed to give him material rewards. But Lin listened to Siba's intention and wanted to tie himself to beating the enemy. In that case, Lin had to think about why. After thinking about it, Lin couldn't figure out why Siba offered such a high price, except for his status as the Hunter Association's exclusive psychic master. Chapter 28. After thinking about it, Lin couldn't figure out why he was so valuable, and he wondered, why? Haha. Silva couldn't help but laugh a few times when he heard Lin's question and said, "Your greatest value is of course you. I can feel that although your strength is above average among those with telekinesis ability, your telekinesis ability is very strong, and beating enemy Hakas also requires a mind killer, so we can't go to the Hunter Association every time something happens." After listening to Silva's explanation, Lin suddenly realized, sure enough, it's because of my identity as a telepathic master. You may not have been exposed to telekinesis abilities for a long time. You should have explored the knowledge about telekinesis beasts on your own, right? Silva saw that Lin only understood part of the meaning, and then explained the classification of the mind beasts in detail. After listening, Lin finally understood that Siba did not value himself, but invested in his mind beast. After thinking for a while, Lin finally nodded and said, "I am willing to be the guest who beats up the enemy Haka." Ha! Ha! Lin, besides your telekinesis ability, do you know what I value most about you? After Lin agreed to become a guest, Siba seemed to relax a lot, with a hint of playfulness in her words. Do not know. This time Lin was very straightforward. He had become a guest of the family who beat up enemies anyway, so he just asked directly. Silva said with some regret, "Lien, in fact, your greatest asset is your youth. As far as I know, almost no one at your age can be as strong as you. I think it's the same even for Nitro. As long as you don't die and follow the right path, I can guarantee that with your telekinesis ability and capital, you will definitely have a place at the top of the 6 continents in the future. Then Silva seemed to have thought of something and said, it's not impossible even to break in there. Lin thought about Siba's words quietly and found that he had indeed ignored many issues. Although he started at a much higher level than others due to being in prison, his mastery and understanding of many skills are only at the level of the original work. For a moment, Lin thought of many things, the most important of which was that he had committed a common problem among transmigrators, that is, he was too familiar with the plot and ignored the basic knowledge of being a telepathic person. After all, the plot is a big entity, but the real reality needs to be revealed step by step. After letting out a gentle breath, Lin said sincerely to Siba, "Thank you. I want to learn the basics of Nen and all kinds of knowledge." After thanking Siba, Rin put forward his own idea. "No problem, you can go to the library to read the knowledge you like." Afterwards, Siba called the butler and asked the butler to take Lin to the library. "By the way, someone will notify you after we have contacted the prisoner." When Lin was about to go out, Siba's words came from behind Lin. Nodding to Silva, Lin followed the butler to the library. From this moment on, Lin became the exclusive mind killer of the Hunter Association and the guest king who defeated enemy Hakas. He was also a disciple of Shinjin Ryu. He could be said to have the highest background in the Hunter world. One of the group of people. The library of the Beat de Haka family is very large. When he arrived here, Lin was almost stunned by the sight in front of him. Only at this moment did he understand the profound heritage of the Beat de Haka family. Mr. Lin, you can read the books here at will. All books are just copies and can be taken away, but you must go to the butler's room to register, and remember to return them after reading. The accompanying butler came over, holding a thick volume of books in his hand. "This is?" Lin asked doubtfully, looking at the books in front of him. The butler placed the books on the table in front of Lin and said, "This is the catalogue of all the books and their placement locations. You can choose to read professional books." "Thank you. It's okay, Mr. Lin, I'll leave then. If you need anything, please call the butler's office." The butler reported the phone number, Lin recorded it on his phone, and then the butler left. Looking at the huge library, Lin decided to select a batch of books and read them on the way to Tommy's forest, while learning knowledge and passing the boring time. After selecting the books, Lin took a manual of basic assassination techniques and read it on the table. Just when Lin was looking at Zheng Xiang, a figure came over and stopped in front of Lin. Lin turned around and saw that the person coming was none other than Illumi. Not understanding why Illumi appeared here, Lin asked doubtfully, "Is something wrong?" Illumi looked at Lin with somewhat gloomy eyes, without speaking or expressing anything, and the two of them fell into silence for a while. Suddenly Illumi raised a hand and threw a piece of paper on the table and said, "I owe you a favor. If you need to kill someone, please contact me and I can get a discount." After saying that, Illumi left without looking back. Looking at Illumi's disappearing figure, Lin twitched the corner of his mouth and said secretly, "Will you die if you say thank you?" Picking up the note, there was a phone number written on it, which was undoubtedly Illumi's personal phone number. Lin saved the phone number in his mobile phone and continued his reading career. In the blink of an eye, Lin stayed in the Haka family for 2 days. During this period, Lin continued to learn knowledge from books, and the more he read, the more insignificant he felt. That day the housekeeper came to the library and informed Lin that the prisoner was ready. In order to prevent the possibility of the prisoner escaping midway, Lin needs to go to Pujin's prison in the Republic of Bartokia to receive him. Lin was overjoyed after hearing the news. He should have rushed to Tommy's forest a long time ago, but he postponed his journey just to wait for the reward. He was already prepared to wait for a month, but he didn't expect to beat the enemy Haka's work efficiency so fast. Mr. Lin, this is a letter of introduction. Give it to the warden and you can pick it up. The butler took an envelope and put it on the table in front of Lin, turned around and left. Lin looked at the selected books, threw them and the letters of introduction into the prison's storage room, stretched and said, "It's time to collect the reward. I hope you won't disappoint me too much." Just as Lin was about to leave, he seemed to remember something. He turned around and picked up a separate book from his chair. This book Lin attached great importance to was titled Journey to the New World. East. After telling Siba that he was leaving, Siba said nothing, but Lin believed that if he needed it, he would definitely not be disappointed by beating up the enemy family. After 2 days of traveling, Lin finally arrived at Pyokin's prison. He handed the letter of introduction in his hand to the prison guard guarding the door and waited for news outside the prison. At this time, in the Hunter Association of Olabian Continent. Oh no, President! Something big has happened. The bean-faced man ran into Nitro's office in a panic. Seeing that the bean-faced man was so anxious, Nitro calmly took a sip of tea and said, "What's the matter, Xiadu?" Chapter 29. In Nitro's office, the bean-faced man breathed heavily and sorted out his words. President, the logistics team that just explored the Lulak ruins reported that the exploration team lost contact with the outside world 2 days ago, and the entrance to the ruins was blocked by a powerful mind energy barrier, making it impossible to enter no matter what method is used. Hearing this, Nitro's face became a little serious. After speaking, the bean-faced man took a few quick breaths and then said, "The members of the exploration team are, 1-star Ruins Hunter, Sats, 1-star Ancient Writing Hunter, Bijir, 2-star Cultural Relic Hunter, Carrot, 2-star Gem Hunter, Bisji." Nitro stroked his beard and said, "As for the issue of the ruins, it seems that we need to find professionals to deal with it." After thinking for a while, Nitro said, "Can I contact Jin? It's difficult to get in touch with Mr. Jin. I hope we can get through." The bean-faced man picked up the phone and dialed. Along with the beep, beep sound of the phone, the bean-faced man's heartbeat seemed to be the same as the ringtone of the mobile phone. "Hey! Xiaoduzi? Is there anything going on with the association?" As the call was connected, the bean-faced man breathed a sigh of relief and said, "It's great that Mr. Jin can get through to you, President." The bean-faced man looked at Nitro and asked Nitro if he wanted to communicate with Jin personally. Nitro shook his head. It wasn't that he wasn't worried about the missing people in the ruins, but he was afraid that Jin Fulasi would take advantage of the situation and make some random demands. "Mr. Jin, the thing is like this." As the bean-faced man explained, Jin gradually understood what happened. "Is Lulu a ruin? That is a very long-lasting ruin. How did the association discover it?" Jin asked doubtfully. The bean-faced man hurriedly explained, "The Lulak ruins were discovered in a mountain range on the I-Chen continent. The bottom of that mountain range changed some time ago, and government surveyors discovered the entrance to the ruins during their work. None of the 3 people who entered at that time came out. The remaining people immediately notified the local department. After the local department dispatched troops to no avail, they hoped to get help from the association." Then the bean-faced man said with some embarrassment, "Originally, the government's contact with the association was handled by the association. Because of some things, the 2-star gem hunter Bisji Kurika obtained the information about the ruins and negotiated with the local government. On the condition that 95% of the output in the ruins is achieved, an exploration team was spontaneously organized." Jin Fulasi on the other end of the phone touched his chin and said, "Is the president around?" The bean-faced man signaled Nitro with his eyes, and Nitro shook his head, dipped his finger in tea, and wrote the word "lean" on the table. "The president has gone to do something very important. He just informed me to contact Mr. Jin as soon as possible." Listening to the words of the bean-faced man, Jin Fulasi said, "Since it's not there, forget it. I'm also very interested in the Lulu K ruins, but what to do with the mind energy barrier that blocks the ruins?" Nitro had already given Demian Man a reminder, and Demian Man said without any panic, "The president has already contacted the association's new mind-killing master, Mr. Lean, and he will solve the matter of mind eradicating." "Well, it seems I've been too busy recently, and I didn't even know that the association had changed its mind master." Jin sighed with emotion, and then continued with a playful look, "President, I know you are here, and the matter of the ruins is no problem. My request is to let the mind-erasing master named Lean help me remove the mind." Upon hearing this, the bean-faced man immediately looked at Nitro, who pointed at himself, shook his head, and then drew a sign in the air. The bean-faced man immediately understood and said, "The president is really not here, but I will tell the president about Mr. Jin's request." Jin on the other side showed a proud smile and said, "Then wait until the president agrees to my conditions." "Xiaoduzi. Bye, President." The bean-faced man looked at Nitro helplessly, and seemed to be very helpless towards Jin. "What a difficult guy." Nitro muttered, picked up the phone and dialed Lean's number. At this time, Lean didn't know about the Hunter Association. He was following the prison guard to the warden's room. Dong! Dong. Warden, the guests have arrived. Please come in. As a rough voice appeared, the door to the warden's room was opened by the prison guard, and what came into view was a strong and tough man in uniform. Hello. Mr. Lin, I am Chiketo Pasamp, the warden of this prison. Next, I will take you to select the prisoners to be detained. Chikodo was very polite to Lin and did not show any contempt for Lin because of his young age. Sensing Kikudo's attitude, Lin knew that the letter of introduction must have explained his identity as a Hakka guest minister. Lin waved his hand and said, "You're welcome, Warden Kikudo, just call me Lin." Chikodo took a document from the table and said to Lin, "Lin, the place we are going to now is an area specially designed to hold people with telekinesis. Although the prisoners are restricted, for the sake of safety, you can only observe the prisoner's condition from a distance." Lin nodded to show that he understood. This is the prisoner's roster. It records basic information such as the prisoner's sentence and reading ability. You can check it yourself. After Kikudo finished speaking, he handed the information in his hand to Lin. After taking the information, Lin was about to take a brief look at it, but he didn't expect that the phone made a d sound, and it was a number that had not been recorded. Holding the file under his arm, Lin answered the phone. "Lin, the matter of beating up the enemy Hakka family was handled very well. I heard that you became the guest minister who beat up the enemy Hakka family." Nitro's voice came from the phone, which surprised Lin. After all, Nitro would definitely not contact him if he was fine. "President, this is all thanks to your care. Of course, I will not forget that I still belong to the Hunter Association." In line with the principle of flattery, while stating his position, Lin gave Nitro a small pat. Chikudo on the side looked at Lin on the phone and instantly became extremely nervous. Unexpectedly, the person calling Lin was actually his idol, President Nitro. Immediately, Chikodo began to gesture in front of Lin, asking if he needed to avoid him. Seeing Lin nodded, Chikudo left the warden's office with the prison guards. Nitro laughed on the other side of the phone and said playfully, "What a smart kid." Then he said in a very serious tone, "Something happened to Lin Biscay, and now Biscay needs your help." Hearing Nitro say something happened to Biscay, Lin immediately cheered up, his heart sank to the bottom, and said urgently, "What happened to Biscay?" Chapter 30. Later, under Lin's questioning, Nitro told Biscay's encounter on the continent of Egean. Next, Xiaodu contacted a powerful 2-star ruins hunter, but the other party made a condition and required you to clear his mind once. Nitro, who explained the incident to Lin, played a trick and reported the matter to the Hunter Association, which issued a rescue mission and set rewards based on the difficulty of the mission. Although the association contacted Jinfulis, the reward should be borne by the Hunter Association, but at this moment Nitro left the problem to Lin. Nitro knew about the friendship between Lin and Biscay, and he didn't look down upon the reward. He only took this approach out of the old naughty fun. Lin thought for a moment and said, "I can agree to the other party's conditions, but the other party must go to the Lulak ruins as soon as possible." "Just agree, but you have to go together. After all, the entrance to the ruins is blocked by a barrier. You can't get in unless you unlock it. You wait for Xiaodu's notification first, and he will arrange your next steps." Nitro breathed a sigh of relief. Things had been arranged. The ruins only had to wait for news. "Xiaodu, go contact Jin and tell me." Nitro smiled softly, with a hint of cunning in his eyes, like an old fox. "Okay, President." The bean-faced man picked up his cell phone and dialed Jin's number. "How's it going?" The president agreed. Jin's voice came from the other end of the phone. From the tone of his voice, it seemed that he had a chance to win. The bean-faced man recalled what the president told him. The president agreed, got in touch with Lin, agreed to your request at a huge cost, and formed a search and rescue team with you to go together. There was silence on the other end of the phone for a while, and Jin said, "I am leaving for the Ichen continent now. It will take about 2 days to arrive. Tell Lin that I will wait for him in York City." Hearing this, the bean-faced man said, "Okay. Mr. Jin, so that Mr. Lin can contact you as soon as possible, I will give him your contact information. I wish you good luck in martial arts." After the call with Jin ended, the bean-faced man glanced at the president. Nitro understood the meaning instantly and nodded, indicating that there was no problem. With the president's permission, the bean-faced man immediately contacted Lin. At this time, Lin was in a state of panic in the warden's room. He didn't know why this guy was going to the ruins instead of looking for gems, and he had lost contact with him. Dib. Dib. Lin immediately picked up the phone and asked before the bean-faced man could speak, what did the other party say? The bean-faced man felt Lin's anxiety and said hurriedly, Mr. Lin, don't be impatient. Mr. Jin has agreed and asked me to inform you that we will meet in Yorker City on the Aegean continent in 2 days. Lin asked doubtfully, Jin. Yes, Jin Fulasi, a 2-star relic hunter, Hai Zhu of the 12 earthly branches of the Hunter Association, has a very comprehensive knowledge of relics. The bean-faced man replied. Regarding the information about Jin Fulasi, Lin's understanding of the original work is still very clear. Although Jin Fulasi is only a 2-star ruins hunter, his achievements have already reached 3 stars, but he is too lazy to verify it because he is afraid of trouble. Because this person is very casual about everything and always acts according to his own preferences, which makes him disliked by a group of people around him. However, he is a very reliable person, and his biggest reputation is that he is the most popular person in the world. One of the 5 strongest people with great mind abilities. Thinking of this, Lin felt relieved about the chance of rescuing this guy. Mr. Lin, I will give you Mr. Jin's contact information, and I will arrange your itinerary as soon as possible and try to reach Yorker City within 2 days. After hearing the arrangement of the bean-faced man, Lin said, I am currently in Pujin's prison. Please help me arrange the fastest route. Mr. Lin, please keep the phone open and I will arrange your departure as soon as possible. After saying that, the bean-faced man changed his mind on the phone and took the time to prepare for Lin's next trip. Looking at the phone in his hand, Lin's face was gloomy. He didn't expect that the matter had become so serious that the association actually dispatched Jin Fulis. It seemed that this incident was not an easy one for President Nitro. Based on Lin's understanding of the original work, the dangers and safety of exploring ruins are completely polarized. For simple ruin exploration, personnel only need to preserve the internal integrity and verify the historical information inside, and there is no risk to life at all. But the other kind is completely different. Throughout the history of mankind, only a small part of various dangerous items are on the surface, and the rest have become funerary objects along with history. The degree of danger involved is self-evident, otherwise why would Jin Fulis be so strong? That was tempered through danger after danger. Pushing open the door to the warden's room, Lin saw Chikdu standing outside the door and said sheepishly, I was delayed because of something, sorry warden. It's okay, Mr. Lin. I didn't expect that Mr. Lin and President Netero have such a good relationship. That gentleman is the idol of us martial arts practitioners. Speaking of Nitro, Chikdu clearly exposed the little fanboy's true nature. In fact, Lin also knows that there are 2 forces with the greatest influence in the hunter world, one is the United Nations-like existence, V5, and the other is the Hunter Association. The current scale of the Hunter Association is because of Nitro. As long as there are martial arts masters in this world, Nitro is the well-deserved god in their hearts. Lin waved his hand and said, it's nothing, it's just that the president has assigned a task. Is that so? It seems that Mr. Lin's status in the Hunter Association is unusual. The president actually issued the mission himself. Kaikduo said thoughtfully. Lin shook his head and said, it's nothing, he's just the exclusive mind killer of the Hunter Association. Hearing this, Kaikduo froze on the spot and thought to himself, that's all? That's exclusive to the association, has the same status as the 12 earthly branches, and is also popular in everyone's eyes. Why? This guy sounds like it. It's so casual. Is it amazing to beat up the guest of the enemy's Haka family? It seems really amazing, I'm so envious, damn it. Lin didn't know what Chikdo was thinking, but this guy's situation now made Lin very worried. After all, this guy had given him too much help, and the 2 had already established a deep friendship. Lin glanced at Kaikduo, who seemed to be thinking about something and said, Warden, let's go. After selecting the prisoners, I still have some very important things to deal with. Oh. Okay. Please come with me. Kikido, who was interrupted from thinking, reacted quickly and immediately took Lin to the place where prisoners with telekinesis abilities were detained. Finally, under the leadership of Kaikduo, Lin came to a cage. At this moment, the Eye of Judgment that had been dormant for a long time came into play again. 472. This is the crime value of the prisoner in front of him. Chapter 31. The prison is different from the dark and humid environment you imagined. The place where people with telekinesis abilities are detained can be said to be completely shrouded in light, and everything you see is white. The prisoner in the prison had his hands tied behind his back with locks, his whole body was suspended by a rope, and a black iron spike was inserted into his shoulder. Warden Kikadu, what is this? Lin didn't understand the principle, so he asked Kaikduo in order to increase his knowledge. Kaikduo looked at the hanging prisoner and explained, the difference between people with telekinesis abilities and ordinary people is that they have all kinds of strange telekinesis abilities and their physical fitness is beyond ordinary people. Kaikduo pointed to the locks that locked the prisoner's hands and said, look, that set of locks is specially made to prevent prisoners from opening the cell door. Of course, it's mainly to prevent enhancement-type criminals. The lock is a special alchemy item made by using magic beasts and refined metals to alchemize the materials. As long as you are locked, you can't break free. After listening to the introduction of the lock, Lin murmured thoughtfully, alchemy. After reading the original work, Lin still knows a little bit about alchemy, but only a little bit. That is the pinnacle knowledge of the mysterious side and the scientific side of V5 scientific research. Alchemy products are only used to refine high-end items, and are rare in quantity, and the materials are extremely expensive. One of the most precious materials is one of the hopes of the Dark Continent, the alchemical plant metallion. Chiketo then introduced, Mr. Lin, have you seen the blackthorn stuck in the prisoner's shoulder? Hearing this, Lin nodded. The blackthorn is also an alchemy item. As long as the blackthorn is inserted into the body of the Esper, he will be unable to mobilize the mind energy in the body and will be forced into a state of despair. It is not an exaggeration to say that he is powerless. So this area is always brightly lit, and we just need to monitor the prisoner's every move at all times. What about the prisoner's physiological needs? Can't he just hang in the air all the time? After listening to Kaikduo's explanation, Lin also raised a question. Kaikduo smiled and said, of course there are dedicated people responsible for these things, and my duty as the warden is to protect the safety of this prison. Lin nodded to express his understanding, then picked up the prisoner's information and said, what is the name of the prisoner in front of you? Kaikduo introduced, the thousand-faced man, Zhou Qi, relied on the ability to change his face and committed fraud, theft, robbery, murder, rape, and other crimes, and was sentenced to 742 years. Lin nodded and said, he is truly a heinous person, and the pain he is suffering now is the end he deserves. Kaikduo nodded and agreed with Lin's words, does this person take up one of your quotas? This time, under the guarantee of the beaten guest family, Lin has the qualifications to extract 3 telepathy prisoners, so when it comes to selection, he must choose the one with the highest crime value. As for the rest, there will always be a way in the future. After all, the Hunter Association made a promise when it invited him to become a mind killer. Lin thought for a while and said, let's continue to look at it. It's not too late to make a choice after reading it. Please follow me, let's go to the next detention point. Kaikduo nodded and walked forward. After taking a quick look at the telepaths imprisoned in Pujin's prison, Lin discovered that the telepaths in this world are truly rare talents. The entire prison only holds 5 ability users. It can be said that after Lin extracts 3, the pressure on the prison will be greatly reduced. After walking around in front of the people with telekinesis in the prison, Lin discovered that the first Zhou Qi he met was actually the one with the highest crime score, but the rest of the charges were not unfair. It would not be an exaggeration to say that he committed crimes including burning, killing, and looting. Warden, I need to extract the thousand-faced man Zhou Qi, the sadistic murderer Basso, and the psychologist Lauren Pu. Lin selected 3 people according to their level of crime. A rough calculation showed that they were 472, 251, and 233. They could definitely upgrade the prison to level 3. Chiketo wrote down the prisoner's name and said, Mr. Lin, please go and rest first, and then the prisoner will be brought to you in a coma. Lin nodded, and then Kikijao used the intercom to call a prison guard and lead Lin to other places. After Lin left, Chikodo looked at the prisoners in the prison, with a ferocious look on his face, and murmured to himself, a bunch of scum, this is your last use, the only regret is that you can't be in prison. I see your despair. Lin, who had already left, did not see this scene. If he had seen it, Lin would be filled with emotion. This must be a person with a story. The prison guard took Lin to a lounge. After the prison guard left, Lin checked the place. After confirming that there was no monitoring equipment, Lin began to wait impatiently. Lin's heart was very conflicted at the moment. He was anxious about his friend being in danger, and he was also looking forward to the skills the prison would give him next. Not long after, Chikadu and 3 prison guards walked in with the unconscious prisoner. Mr. Lin, the prisoners are all here. You can do whatever you want. Chikadu ordered his men to put the criminal on the ground and said, then I won't disturb Mr. Lin. After Chikadu finished speaking, he left with a group of prison guards. Lin looked at the prisoner on the ground and took the prisoner directly into the prison without any hesitation. In the past, Lin was very afraid of the fact that the prison would make unknown people disappear, but now, to put it bluntly, it doesn't matter even if people know about it. There was Chunian as a cover in the past, and there was support from the Hunter Association and the enemy beater later. As long as they were not fools, no one would do such a thankless thing. What's more, if you offend a mind-killing master, the other party must first consider whether he will be possessed by various thoughts in the future. The moment the prisoner was put into prison, a stream of information was instantly transmitted into Lin's mind. The information was quite large, so Lin spent a lot of time sorting out the information. After a long time, Lin finished sorting it out, and then with a thought, Lin appeared in the prison. Inside the prison, white life essence floated, but it was much less than at the beginning. Xiaobai had already woken up and was floating in the air, constantly catching the life essence in the air. Every time he took a sip, a happy expression appeared on his face. Seeing Lin's arrival, Xiaobai said surge. Flew to Lin's shoulder, and rubbed his cheek affectionately. Under Lin's observation, Xiaobai seemed to have grown a lot. He used to be about 50 centimeters, but now he is about 60 centimeters. It seems that Xiaobai will grow with the devouring thoughts. Lin thought secretly. Lin walked towards the prison with Xiaobai on his shoulders. He first observed the 3 Shadazuo who had been imprisoned before and found that the 3 of them were almost dying. They had stopped exuding life essence and were now barely able to maintain their vitality. Just life. Fortunately, 3 more came in this time, otherwise Xiaobai would have run out of food. With a sigh, Lin prepared to go to the next place, an area of the prison that had just been unlocked. Chapter 32. The information given by the prison is that the prison has unlocked a skill and a facility. The facility unlocked by upgrading is called the interrogation room. At this moment, Lin had arrived in the interrogation room. As soon as Lin saw it, he saw a seat and a huge crystal. According to the information given by the prison, the interrogation room can extract all the prisoner's memories, and according to the events or time points that Lin needs, put those memories into the crystal in front of him for Lin to view at will. After seeing the interrogation room, Lin was very satisfied and said to himself, it's a really good facility, especially for things that need to be kept secret, and those who have signed the oath can know the hidden secrets at no cost. When it comes to keeping secrets, the world of full-time hunters can be said to be quite perfect. For example, Bianda and Jin have always wanted to go to the Dark Continent. Why they can't go is because Nitro made them sign an oath. This proves that some things that are extremely confidential or not allowed, the oath plays a very important role, and its application among people with mental abilities will be extremely extensive. In addition, no one is willing to bear the price of breaking the oath, and it is very unrealistic to torture everything they want to know. If Lin encounters this situation in the future, the role of the interrogation room will become very important. In the hunter world, in some aspects, the significance and value of intelligence is no less than the weight of life. Nodding towards the crystal in the monitoring room, Lin arrived at the warden's room with a thought. The warden's room was still the same as before. There was nothing on the bookshelf. Lin looked at the roof of the warden's room and muttered silently, activate the prison weapon. After the prison reaches level 3, in addition to unlocking the interrogation room of the prison facility, a prison skill is also unlocked, and this skill is very practical for Lin, called prison weapon. Prison weapons, as the name suggests, are weapons belonging to prisons, but how can prison weapons be ordinary weapons? The prison warrior will give Lin a huge prison memory, and Lin will create a weapon, and the weapon can create abilities at will within the memory capacity. When he browsed this piece of information, Lin was shocked. He didn't expect that the prison would give him such a big surprise at just level 3. You must know that at the beginning of the transmigrating, before Lin woke up, Lin always thought that the prison was a prison. It's a useless golden finger. According to the information from the prison, not all skills can be created and must be within the capacity of the memory. Ryan knows about memory capacity. When a person with telekinesis develops his telekinesis ability, the memory capacity in his body will be consumed. The more abilities you develop, the greater the memory capacity it takes up, and the effect of the ability to read will become weaker and weaker. When the memory capacity is full of abilities, the telekinesis ability will go out of control and backfire on the ability user. Therefore, the real masters in the hunter world develop one ability wholeheartedly. For Lean, the memory capacity is like a memory card. When the contents are full, the memory card will become useless. The result of forced storage will cause the memory card to burn. Of course, it is not ruled out that the content can be deleted, but the cost will definitely be scary. When creating weapons, Lean never considered how, as a swordsman, he could not have his own sword. It's just that I haven't found a suitable one before, so I haven't worn it on my body. Now is the time to create a good knife. The moment Lean turned on the prison weapon, traces of white gas appeared out of thin air in the warden's room. More and more gases quickly condensed into a gel-like sphere. Reaching out and touching it, Lean felt a burst of Q-bombs. This feeling was very novel. It seemed to be jelly or something else. The information told Lean that the creation method was very simple, which was to rely on Lean's imagination, and the prison's memory would automatically form a model of the prison weapon based on the shape in Lean's imagination. Since you are creating a weapon, of course you should choose the one you are most familiar with. Thinking about the most used weapon in his mind, Lean set his target on Tang Heng Dao. Tang Heng Dao was the first weapon Lean used when he learned swordsmanship in his previous life. Originating in the Tang dynasty, it was one of the most common weapons used on the battlefield at that time. It was somewhat similar to the Japanese sword, except that the Tang Heng Dao had a straight blade. Lean thought about the data Tang Heng Dao needed, and then began to imagine Tang Heng Dao's model in his heart. I need a Tang Dao. The knife is 70 centimeters long and the handle is long. As Lean continued to imagine, the memory floating in the air also continued to change, until Lean opened his eyes and saw exactly what he imagined Tang Heng Dao looked like. As soon as he reached out, Lean directly took the knife in his hand. The moment he took it, Lean could clearly feel that both the weight and the touch fit perfectly with him. What is a good knife to Lean? What are the foundations of a good knife? Sharp? Sturdy? None of these. Sharpness and sturdiness are just factors. The most important thing for a good knife is that it fits well with the owner. It's like a knife that doesn't fit can bring out up to 70% of the user's combat power, while a knife that fits itself can bring out 110%. Don't underestimate the 40% difference in the middle. Sometimes this 40% is related to the lives of both the enemy and ourselves. After playing a few tricks, Lean couldn't put it down. Perfect, beyond my expectations, just like another me. Looking at the snow-white blade, Lean even felt as if he was immersed in it, as if the blade and his own breathing could produce rhythm. Now it's time to think about what kind of ability we have developed. It's thinking ability again. Every time he faces this kind of problem, Lean is very distressed. It's not that it's difficult to create an ability, but that there are too many abilities to choose from, and each one is extremely effective and has an extremely high upper limit of potential. Of course, you still have to choose the one that suits you best. Looking at the Tang Dao in front of him, Lean began to think carefully. After an unknown amount of time, Lean's eyes lit up and he blurted out 3 words, I thought of it. Lean's starting point is very simple, which is the ability that is most needed at the moment. This ability relies on the prison martial Tang sword, and it must be the ability of the sword system. Most of the sword type abilities are focused on attack, but as a swordsman, Lean is already very offensive with the long sword in his hand. Xiaobai can remove thoughts and heal. Since he has attacks and treatments, the only thing missing is his ability to control. After all, to put a prisoner in prison requires that the other party be unable to resist. Combining these 2 words with the combination of sword and control, an almost unsolvable skill appeared in Lean's mind. Staring at the Tang Dao in his hand, Lean thought to himself, whether it succeeds or not depends on you. Chapter 33. Ability Creation. When Lean created his ability, Tang Dao burst out with a burst of intense light. The ability I created is called Mirror Flower, Water Moon. After conveying the ability settings of Aizen's Zanpakuto and Kyoka Suijutsu from the original Shinigami world to Nagato, Nagato instantly reacted and flashed with brilliance. Just when Lean thought he was about to succeed, the prison conveyed a message to Lean. The general content was that the memory capacity did not support the creation of advanced abilities. Sure enough, the conditions for Mirror Flowers and Moon are too high. Although it was originally a test, I am still quite disappointed with this result. Lin sighed for a while and thought to himself, there is no other way but to settle for the next best thing. Ability creation. The brilliance of the long sword shined again. Lin organized his thoughts and then began to set abilities, but this time it was obviously much slower than last time. The Tang sword is named Wushan, which comes from the meaning of unforgivable sin. After naming the long sword, the word pardon appeared on the blade. Wuxian will rely on the prison to exist and have self-repair properties. It can self-repair by injecting thoughts. Wuxian can use the sword owner's thoughts to improve its sharpness and solidity. The Wuxi sword is equipped with mind poison. Anyone injured by Wuxi will be implanted with mind poison. The thought poison spreads based on the thoughts, emotions, and blood flow speed of the opponent's body. When the mind poison spreads, a crescent mark will condense on the opponent's head. This mark will be invisible except for the person holding the knife. When the thought poison spreads, the poisoned person will be trapped in the illusion woven by the sword master. After discovering this, Lin didn't know what he thought of and said slowly, there is a chain at the end of the handle, which is called the knife lock. The sword lock can absorb the sword owner's mind power to expand and shrink freely. The sword lock can bind the enemy, and the enemy bound by the sword lock will be forced into a state of absolute despair. Creation completed. Lin let out a breath and looked at the sparkling Wu Sheng. He knew in his heart that success or failure would depend on this time. After a long time, the light of Wuji stopped flashing, and the message from the prison also came, informing Lin that the prison weapon's ability was successfully created and could be summoned to the outside world at any time. Feeling the feeling of Wu Sheng in his hand, Lin felt inexplicably relieved, and a fighting spirit slowly rose. It's impossible for a swordsman to fight with a sword that's unparalleled, but now is not the time. Putting Wu Sheng on the knife rest in the warden's room, Lin immediately called up the panel. He had just admitted 3 prisoners, and he had to see how much his lifespan had increased. Pulling up personal information, sure enough the panel has been updated. Warden, Ryan Purst. Age, 13 years old. Prison level, level 3. Prison skills, Eye of Judgment, Prison Controller, Infinite Body, Prison Marshal without pardon. Prison facilities, Warden's Room, Jail, Storage Room, Interrogation Room. Lifespan, 82 years. Sin value, 296 points. Next stage, Sin points. Looking at the attribute panel, it turns out that although I have grown 1 year older, my lifespan has reached 82 years after long-term nourishment by life essence, but seeing that the next stage required some Sin points, Lin couldn't help but feel a headache. Sure enough, there is no free lunch in this world. It seems that my welfare period has passed. With a wry smile, Lin put the matter behind him. He understood that the most important thing to do now was to go to the Luloko ruins and bring Bisji out. As for the Sin value, there would always be a way. With a thought in his mind, Lin appeared in Pukin's prison, took out his phone and took a look at it. It showed dozens of missed calls. Dib. Dib. Before Lin could call back, the phone rang immediately. Hello. I'm Reen. Mr. Lin, I have called you. The association has arranged a special airship for you to pick you up without airborne landing. Please wait for notification at Pukin's prison. The caller was Bean-Faced Man, and Lin could tell that Bean-Faced Man was a little anxious because he didn't receive the call. Okay, I know. Lin agreed and hung up the phone, then opened the door to find the Warden Chikao. Warden Chikoto, thank you for your help, I'm ready to leave. Because he had to prepare for the next thing, Lin said goodbye to Chikoto. Kaikduo said regretfully, are you leaving? It's a pity that I can't entertain you, Mr. Lin. After Chiketo finished speaking, he called a prison guard and ordered the prison guard to take Lin out of the prison. After leaving the prison, Lin checked the battery of his mobile phone. After knowing that it did not need to be charged, he took a taxi and went to the highest-rated restaurant nearby. Hello sir, welcome to our store. A waiter was extremely respectful to Lin at the table and was waiting for Lin's order. Looking at the menu in his hand, Lin frowned slightly. He didn't expect that the highest quality ingredients were C-grade ingredients. Nowadays, Lin's breakthrough body is supported by many excellent ingredients, and C-level ingredients are rarely effective. Although the company he opened with Ford specializes in purchasing ingredients, the number of times he received B-grade ingredients was pitiful, so Lin had to go out to look for high-end ingredients. After ordering all the dishes with C-level ingredients in the store, Lin thought to himself, after rescuing Biscay from the Lulaco ruins this time, I must rush to Tomi's forest as soon as possible. I hope I won't be disappointed there. Eating the dishes brought by the waiter, after Lin could no longer feel the feeling of getting stronger, he had already entered the tasting state, and occasionally glanced at the mobile phone placed on the table. Dib. Dib. After eating for a while, Rin's cell phone rang. I'm Ryan. Mr. Lin, the liaison officer of the airship just called. In about 5 minutes, the airship will fly over your city. Please release a telekinesis bomb when you see the airship. After the bean-faced man informed Lin of the precautions, he hung up the phone. Consider any more as a tip for you. After taking out a stack of kiwis, Lin didn't count how much, but it was definitely enough for the meal. He handed it to the waiter beside him and left the restaurant under the grateful eyes of the waiter. Walking on the city streets, Lin ran quickly and soon arrived at the tallest building in the city. Looking at the tall buildings, Lin secretly thought, this is it. Rin climbed up without hesitation. Just when he stood at the top of the building, Lin raised his eyes and looked down, and sure enough, a group of people gathered below. Sure enough, were you being watched in public? With a wry smile, Lin looked around and found a small airship in the distance. This airship was obviously not specially made, but it had the logo of the Hunter Association painted on it. Lin raised his hand to condense a thought bomb, making it unstable inside, and then launched the thought bomb into the air. Boom! When the personnel on the airship in the distance saw this scene, the speed of the airship gradually increased and flew towards Lin. When the airship was about 100 meters away from Lin, Lin jumped directly from the spot, drawing an afterimage in the air. When Rin landed again, he had landed on the deck of the airship. Chapter 34. Hello. Are you Mr. Lin? Before Rin could speak, the staff on the airship came forward to confirm his identity. Lin replied, yes, how soon can we get to York City? Mr. Lin, don't be anxious. I'll take you to the warehouse to rest first, and then I will naturally answer your questions. After all, we will speed up from the moment you board the boat, and it is not safe on the terrace. The staff ignored Lin's questions and took Lin to the room in the airship. After entering the room, the staff member said, Mr. Lin, welcome aboard the Miracle Hunter. I am the deputy captain, Krupp Poppen. Listening to Kropp's introduction, Lin said politely, Mr. Kropp, just call me Lin. What did you mean when you said it was not very safe? Faced with Lin's question, Krupp smiled and answered, this airship is a Hunter Association Express airship. There are only 2 people on board, the captain and myself. After a pause, Kropp continued, you have also seen this airship. Although it is much smaller than ordinary airships, it is the product of the airship's telekinesis ability. It can increase its speed as it injects telekinesis, so we stand still when speeding up. It's not safe to be on the patio. Hearing this, Lin understood instantly and said to himself, I still underestimated the Hunter Association. After all, such a large organization has many strange people and objects. Kropp saw that Lin had understood, and continued, this airship is originally a special emergency. The association requires it to arrive in York City in 2 days, but if the airship captain and I work together, we can arrive in about a day and a half. So you can rest assured to rest here, I will notify you when we arrive. Thank you. Rin said sincerely. Kropp smiled slightly and said, Mr. Lin, please rest. I'm going to help Captain Sky. If you have anything important to do in the future, you can ask the Hunter Association to issue a mission. After we get the notice, we may be able to help. Alright, definitely. After Krupp left the room, Lin sat on the bed of the airship and couldn't help but sigh. Sure enough, telekinesis abilities are all kinds of weird, and this Krupp shouldn't be simple either. Then the bored Lin took a book and read it. It was the book Journey to the New World. While Lin was immersed in the grand scenes of that continent, the Miracle Hunter, which was speeding in the air, was rushing to the Aegean continent at an extremely fast speed. If it encountered obstacles during its rapid flight, it would continue to carry out operations. A short space jump. It's a pity that Lin was immersed in the book and didn't pay attention to these operations. Otherwise, Lin would have said with emotion, it's the Miracle Hunter. It's the right name. When Kropp told Lin that he had arrived at his destination, Lin did not expect to arrive in York City within a day and a half. Dib. Dib. The first time he arrived in York City, Lin quickly called Jinfulis. In fact, he was also curious about the main role in this full-time hunter. Hey! Reen? I didn't expect you to arrive from Bartokia to York so quickly. Jin's voice came from the phone, and Lean could tell that there was some noise around him. Lean replied, Mr. Jin Fulasi, I am at the airship airport in York City. Where are you? I will meet you. Airship airport. You wait for me there first, I'll be there right away. After saying that, Jin hung up the phone. Lean was unfamiliar with the place in York City, so he could only wait for Jin's arrival, but for some reason, he had a bad feeling. After waiting for nearly 3 hours, Lean finally heard someone calling his name. The first thing he saw was an old man with gleaming eyes, hair wrapped in a headband, and an unshaven beard, and Lean could obviously smell a strong smell of ramen on Jin. You want me to wait here for 3 hours, just waiting for you to eat ramen? There was no anger in Lean's words, only deep confusion. Well, that store is very popular, and I waited in line for an hour. I almost finished the line. It doesn't suit my style to just leave. On the way here, Jin had long expected that Lean would ask this kind of question, but what he didn't expect was that the young man in front of him was very calm, and his tone was only questioning but not dissatisfied. Don't worry about such details. Let's go directly to the Lulu K ruins. The logistics team there will meet our needs for supplies. However, the road to the Boca Mountains is quite far and we need to drive there. After speaking, Jin took out his mobile phone and made a call. After making the call, Jin said to Lean, wait a moment and someone will send a car over. Lean nodded and said, I hope it can be faster. Jin patted Lean on the shoulder and said, don't worry, hunters have ways to save their lives, and if it is really a fatal danger, the exploration team will be wiped out immediately, so it is useless no matter how anxious we are. Although what Jin said was very straightforward, Lean really had no reason to refute. Jin's voice changed and he said, Lean, how did you practice? You have such a physique at your age. Forehead. Suddenly, Lean thought that Jin had just patted himself. Lean put his hand on his forehead and sighed, I knew. You masters are all dirty-minded and will test you as soon as you get started. This makes it hard for me to trust you. Ha! Ha! Don't worry so much. The two of us form a rescue team. After all, I have to know your strength. Jin didn't care about Lean's words, but he became more and more curious about Lean. Oh! Is that so? Then Mr. Jin, can you let me know your telekinesis ability? Following Jin's words, Lean was also very curious about Jin Fuli's telekinesis ability. After all, the original work only reflected this guy's strength, but did not introduce his ability. Jin touched his chin and thought for a while and said, I will let you see it if I have the chance, but it seems that you still need to help me get rid of my thoughts. What is the price for you to get rid of my thoughts? Without any hesitation, Lean replied, if Mr. Jin can provide me with some capable criminals if I need them or others, except this time, I can consider giving Mr. Jin a discount next time. Jin thought for a while and said, it seems that it is a method of eliminating thoughts that is quick and costly. What is the basis for your guess? Lean asked doubtfully. Based on it. It's just a simple guess. Besides, how can you tell others all the effects and costs of telekinesis? Under Lean's inspection, Jin suddenly laughed and said, none of this is important. If I need to get rid of my thoughts, I will definitely come to you. Why? Lean felt so tired chatting with Jin. When getting along with such a person, it seemed like there were no secrets. Seeing the confusion in Lean's eyes, Jin also began to explain, although your age and your strength puzzle me, your understanding of Nian is too shallow. Chapter 35. Jin felt that being idle was idle, so he might as well explain it to Lean. This was also a way to bring the two of them closer. After all, with his style, he would definitely have a lot of troubles in the future. The so-called mind is power. Why is the method of forcibly opening the sperm hole called an evil way? Because without systematic enlightenment, people will gain power in an instant. After an ordinary person gains power, he will definitely expand. In such a state, his psychology will gradually become distorted, and he will eventually embark on the road of crime. It's like treating ordinary people like ants. Jin continued, generally, when teaching the ability to read, there are two types of people who are not forced to start reading. The first type is those who have insufficient foundation. This does not mean that the foundation must be sufficient, but that both the mental and physical levels have reached a certain level. Then Jin said to Lin with a playful look, the second type is children who are too young, because there are all kinds of uncertainties. The clearest point is that he is unable to control himself, thus developing a series of mind abilities, gradually despising life, and eventually going astray. Lin nodded thoughtfully when he heard this. After all, the situation of Ji Fulici in the original book was similar to what Jin said. He went down a wrong path due to his character. If Killua hadn't beaten him, he would have risked his life. The risk of destroying the enemy family is that you will probably be the one to clean up the mess in the end. Thinking of this, Lin complained secretly, you must not go and see your son, otherwise Zaija will set out to find you. After listening to this part of Jin's explanation, Lin said with doubts, then why are you sure I'm fine? Jin Lu said with some pride, thanks to my many years of experience, your eyes, tone, and demeanor all convey a message to me. What is it? Lin listened quietly, but he didn't expect Jin to stop talking. Jin said with a hee-hee smile, add 1 to the number of times to remove thoughts. Suddenly 3 black lines appeared on Lin's forehead and he said secretly, as expected, although this guy is reliable, his character is really unlikable. I reject. Faced with Jin's proposal, Lin decisively refused. In Lin's view, Jin was planning to give up nothing. Jin shrugged helplessly and said, I expected the rejection. Look. That's how I'm sure you won't go astray, because you have a calmness that doesn't match your age. Generally, people like you won't be tempted by external things. They must have their own rules in their hearts. I think it's not just me. The person who taught you the ability to read must also have discovered this. After Jin finished speaking, he secretly breathed a sigh of relief. He almost made a bad move, but luckily he came back in time. Really? Are you sure you weren't trying to rib me off just now? Lin was momentarily puzzled by King's polarization. The only thing that is certain is that the other party must have wanted to mess with me just now. After all, in the original work, apart from serious things, the other party's character is like this. Jin replied calmly, of course, there is nothing to hide about this kind of thing. Although he said this openly, Jin was also muttering in his heart, why are all the children today so smart? Isn't the one in my family the same? It's really too troublesome. If Lin knew what Jin was thinking at this time, he would definitely complain, your children are not that smart, they are just a little shady, and they are on par with you. The time passed by the two of them chatting. Suddenly, Jin seemed to think of something and said to Lin, Lin, how much do you know about the Lulu K ruins? Lin smiled and said, I don't know how much, I just know that it is a relic from a long time ago. Is that so? Jin said, rubbing his chin with his hand. At this time, an off-road vehicle stopped in front of the two people, and a man wearing the clothes of a scientific researcher stepped out of the vehicle. The scientific researcher walked up to the two of them and said, is this Mr. Jin? Hearing this, Jin nodded and said, are you sent by the local government? The staff member replied, yes, the main fuel tank and spare gasoline in the car are already in place. Now the car will be handed over to you. Jin took the key and said to Lin, let's go. After the two got in the car, Jin started the car skillfully and said, this car is specially made, so you won't worry about road damage. It takes about 7 hours from here to the Boca Mountains. During this time, I will explain Lulu to you. But the origin of the relic. Lin sat in the passenger seat and listened quietly to Jin's explanation. After all, he was a professional. Jin explained while driving, the Luluk ruins are the name of a tribe in the I-Chen continent a long time ago, but this tribe has long disappeared with history. Then Jin asked Lin, do you know Cajun country? Lin nodded and said, I know, there is a country on the I-Chen continent that has not joined V5 and is under autonomous management. Jin continued, it will be easier to explain if you know Cajun country. The Luluk tribe was very large at that time, and the only tribe that could rival it was the tribe led by the ancestors of the Cajun kingdom. Faced with limited resources, the two tribes often launched wars. For unknown reasons, all the Luluk tribe perished overnight, and the remaining tribesmen disappeared. Hearing this part, Lin felt that something must have happened to the Luluk clan at that time, and in the original work, there was no good thing in the entire Cajun kingdom, from the king to the prince. For the continuation of the country, the king started the succession ceremony at the expense of 20 civilians on the whale, and those princes, except for infant babies, all aimed to kill their own brothers. Among them, the most dangerous one is the fourth prince, Chelidonik. Counting his unique aesthetics, he can do almost all kinds of evil. Then what should we pay attention to when we go to Lulak ruins this time? Lin asked doubtfully. Jin smiled slightly and said, when the ruins of Lulak were shrouded by the Niangkai barrier, I felt that Lulak's demise must not be simple, and I became very interested in it. Then Jin said in a somewhat excited tone, as for what to pay attention to? Of course, pay attention to the unknown. Being enveloped by the mind energy barrier is definitely not a good thing. But it is precisely because of this that the ruins have the value of being challenged, and the history unearthed will exceed imagination, isn't it? Lin could completely understand Jin's excitement. After all, he was a professional relic hunter. It was impossible not to have a strong interest in relics. Listening to Jin's explanation, you can understand that in the business of being a relic hunter, the greater the risk, the greater the reward. I will follow your command when entering the ruins. I hope Biscay and the others are not in danger. At the first moment, Lin made his attitude clear. After all, professionally speaking, Jin is undoubtedly the most professional among the ruin hunters, and he will definitely not be able to point fingers. In terms of strength, he is one of the 5 people with great telekinesis abilities, so he will definitely react faster than himself when encountering danger. Chapter 36. After listening to Lin's words, Jin admired Lin very much. For Jin, it is very dangerous to take someone who does not know the ruins into an unknown ruins. The biggest fear is that the other party will not obey the command, which will cause huge hidden dangers to the ruins. Knowing his own abilities, being calm and wise, and most importantly, knowing his position among the two of them, Lin couldn't help but take it to another level in Jin's mind. Jin said firmly, "Don't worry, as long as the exploration team is still alive when we arrive, there will be no problem." Okay. Lin agreed, seemed to have thought of something, and then said, "Mr. Jin, do you know what the divine word is?" Jin thought for a while and replied, "I know that the divine characters are words written by reading. According to the effect of the divine characters, items will be blessed to a certain extent. Moreover, the divine characters are also the characters of the Dark Continent." Of course, Lin knew that Jin must know the divine calligraphy, but he just wanted to learn from Jin. Then he asked, "How is Mr. Jin's divine calligraphy level?" "Just so." While driving the car, Jin answered Lin and began to respond perfunctorily to what Lin said. After briefly chatting with Jin about some issues related to divine words, Lin understood that Jin didn't want to answer on purpose, and immediately stopped thinking about it. Lin, who was sitting in the passenger seat, said seriously, "Mr. Jin, I want to learn divine words from you. I don't know what the conditions are." "Oh. You finally got to the point. I thought you would stay with me for a long time." Jin smiled, as if he didn't care, but Lin knew that this guy might be harboring some bad ideas. "Actually, I didn't think too much about it. I just thought it would be better for people like Mr. Jin to speak frankly." Lin, who had already seen clearly, no longer cared about what Jin wanted. After all, the opportunity to learn the divine word was right in front of him. "Lin, have you heard of the Dark Continent?" For a moment, Lin discovered that Jin's tone was very serious when he mentioned the Dark Continent. Fortunately, Dong Dong just started reading the New World Chronicles recently. Jin looked over with a very surprised look, which made Lin feel proud. He didn't expect Jin to show such a look. "Mr. Jin, you are driving, please pay attention to safety," Rin reminded. "I didn't expect you to read this book. This book should have been banned by now." "Where did you find it?" Jin asked doubtfully. Lin replied calmly, "I was invited by Silva a few days ago to become a guest of the Hakas who beat the enemy. Then I randomly found a few books from the library and read them. Among them was Journey to the New World. I didn't expect that you would become the guest minister who defeated the enemy Haka. That family has never introduced outsiders. It seems that your potential is indeed very strong," Jin said in surprise. Then Jin raised a question, "However, do you know why there is only an Eastern volume in the New World Journey, but not a Western volume?" "Of course Lin knows, your ancestor will be sure that he had a great time in the western part of the Dark Continent and forgot to come back." After pretending to think about it, Lin said, "Well, I think the author of this book is still traveling. After all, if he can survive in the Dark Continent, it will definitely not be a problem to live for hundreds of years." Jin's eyes flashed and he said, "You are right, there must be ancient ruins and buried history in that unknown continent. I really want to see it. Lin knew that this was Jin's interest. After all, what is not available is what makes people itch the most. I'm sorry, shouldn't we be discussing the divine word? Why is it related to the Dark Continent again? Lin interrupted Jin's reverie and introduced the topic to the word divine. Jin smiled helplessly and said, Lin, actually I have wanted to go to the Dark Continent for a long time. Due to some oath and qualification issues, I can't go there now. You are right, the author of that book must still be alive, because the author of that book is named Dongfu Si, and he is my ancestor. Lin was about to say something, but was interrupted. Jin continued, President Nitro once said that there is a strange and natural force that is different from what he needs. So next I will say if so, I hope you can consider it carefully and not treat it as a transaction. At this moment, Jin's tone was extremely serious, and Lin had to face it. He didn't know what Jin wanted to do, but he could feel his persistence for that continent. No, it was for the unknown. Mr. Jin, please speak. Jin said in a serious and firm tone, Lin, if one day I prepare to go to that continent, I hope you can join my team. Your mind-erasing ability is of great help to the team. Without you, my chance of success would be reduced by 20%. At this moment, Lin was a little surprised. He didn't expect Jin to think so highly of him. Lin said with a guilty conscience, Mr. Jin, I cannot deserve your high praise. Hearing that Lin belittled himself, Jin retorted, Lin, you underestimate yourself. Do you think the enemy family is stupid for beating the enemy? Or the Hunter Association is stupid? Or I, Jin Fulis, am stupid? Hearing these words, Lin's scalp went numb, and he couldn't stop shouting in his heart, how can I afford to offend these people you mentioned? If you have the ability, replace them with someone who is weak. Feeling Lin's silence, Jin explained, the status of the master in the Hunter Association is second only to President Netero and Vice President Paristan. Although he does not have much real power, he is a person with a high status. And a rare occupation. At this point, Jin asked Lin a question, Lin, how many do you think there are among all those with telekinesis abilities? When Lin heard this question, he wanted to say that there was a Greed Island in the original book, but he couldn't say it. Although Lin is a mind killer, he doesn't know much about this kind of thing. He can only bite the bullet and say, there are so many ability users in the world, there must be a dozen or so, right? Jin smiled disdainfully and said, 10 or so. When I first came into contact with Nian, I knew a total of 5 people including you, the Nian Master, and the other 4 included the previous association's exclusive Nian Master. Lin didn't expect that he knew about Master Nian, but he didn't expect that he was so pitiful. With his status as gold, he only knew 4 people. Counting others, there were no more than 10 Nian Masters in this continent. Jin then explained, the cost of eliminating thoughts by a mind-killing master is very high. The 4 mind-killing masters I know have already retired because their bodies can no longer bear the cost. As for those who have the ability to eliminate thoughts, some costs are so high that they dare not eliminate thoughts, and some have a very small amount of elimination that has almost no effect. So. Jin paused, looked at Lin and said, do you know how important your ability is? Chapter 37. Of course, Lin understands the importance of removing the telepathic master, but he doesn't have to be the one to form a team with Jin. He just doesn't understand why Jin believes in and chooses him. With a questioning attitude, Lin said, Mr. Jin, you can find more suitable talents, why would you choose to invite me? You know I am only 13 years old this year. Jin smiled and said, do you think you are ordinary? Ordinary? Apart from my identity as a telepathic master, my background is a bit strong, and there doesn't seem to be anything special about me. Lin said doubtfully. Haha. Suddenly Jin started laughing in the driver's seat, and it seemed like he couldn't stop laughing. Finally, Jin stopped laughing and said, Lin, I think you may place too much emphasis on the ability to read, but you ignore the importance of people. Are people important? Lin murmured thoughtfully. Seeing that Lin only understood part of it, Jin slowly explained, first of all, a team must have a mastermind, so that the remaining team members will have a collective consciousness. Rin nodded, and couldn't help but think of the model of the Phantom Troop, with the spider-brained leader and 12-legged members. After having the mastermind, the remaining team members must trust each other, have the courage to face difficulties together, and have a clear mind at all times. Lin nodded. We really must trust each other and not lose confidence because of difficulties, causing a team to fall apart from within. What's more important is to have a clear mind and not cause panic within the team due to accidents, thus breaking the team's battle rhythm. In the end, it is about getting rid of the ability to read and letting your own strength play a role. When Jin said this, he explained to Lin in detail, you can now be said to have the basic qualities of a team member. But his understanding of his own strength is very unclear. This is a sign of lack of combat experience. And the most important thing is, this is just your current strength, and the time for our departure may be in a few years. In an instant, Lin suddenly understood and remembered what Silva said to him before. Indeed, as Silva said, not only is he lacking in knowledge now, but he also has no way of measuring his own strength. After listening to Jin's words, Lin asked Jin about his doubts. Mr. Jin, what stage do you think my strength is at now? Jin thought for a while and said, although I don't know what effect your telekinesis ability has on combat, if you exclude telekinesis ability, you are around the middle, and the gap from the upper reaches is not too big. Lin sighed in his heart, sure enough, it's pretty much what Silva said. After hearing what Jin said so much, Lin was also a little moved. Anyway, there was no harm in agreeing to Jin. He would definitely go there to explore the unknown in the future. Having a team can reduce a lot of trouble. Now he mainly focused on learning the divine words. After finalizing his decision, Rin said, okay. If you want to explore the Dark Continent, count me in. After speaking, Lin seemed to have thought of something and said, Mr. Jin, regarding future exploration, how many people did you invite? Jin smiled awkwardly and said, it's just the two of us now. Jin seemed to have expected Lin's speechless look and said, don't be discouraged, the road must be walked step by step, and haven't we already made a good start now? The speechless Lin twitched the corner of his mouth and said to himself, are you talking to me about chicken soup for the soul? Your companions on the Greed Island are not fooled by you in this way, right? At this point, Lin still focused on the matter at hand and said, Mr. Jin, when will we start learning the divine characters? Jin thought for a while and said, the matter of the divine characters is not urgent. It would take an average person 5 years to learn the divine characters at the earliest. Let's finish the matter first. Then I'll take a nap first. After all, I'll be busy when we arrive. After adjusting the passenger seat, Lin narrowed his eyes. Jin sat in the driver's seat, looked at Lin with his eyes closed, smiled and drove the car attentively, but his eyes held the slightest expectation for the future. The Cabo Mountains, located on the continent of Aegean, have not been developed because the terrain is not suitable for building cities. They have always remained primitive. Only occasionally do geologists come here to observe changes in the bottom crust. Wake up Lin, we're almost there. As Jin kept shouting, Lin opened his eyes in a daze. As soon as Lin saw it, he saw the local army setting up a barricade here to prevent outsiders from entering. Lin asked in a daze, this is it? The government's troops are stationed here to prevent outsiders from entering. Of course, we are appointed by the association and can enter as long as we show our hunter's license. Jin explained and then got out of the car, and was greeted by an officer. Lin didn't know what the two said, but judging from the fact that Jin showed his hunter's license as soon as he got out of the car, it should be to confirm his identity. Then Lin got out of the car and just announced his name, and the officer moved the roadblock to let the two pass. Lin, get ready. We are still about 30 minutes away from our destination. We will need your ability to open the telekinesis barrier then. Although Lin felt relaxed listening to these words, sitting next to Jin, he could feel that his mood was extremely hot. Lin stared at the road ahead and said, okay, be on standby at any time. Not long after Jin drove the car, Lin saw rows of tents in front of him, which seemed to be a stronghold. Jin stepped on the brakes and said to Lin, we are here. This is the base of the ruins exploration team. Let's get out of the car. As soon as Jin and Lin got out of the car, a woman wearing a white coat with big waves ran over and said, are they Mr. Jin and Mr. Lin? Lin glanced at Jin, who said to the woman, yes, the association sent us to deal with the Lulu K ruins this time. You are finally here. I am Bona Helat, the leader of the logistics team. The equipment you ordered has been prepared. Please come with me. Let's go. Jin said something and then followed Bona towards the tent, and Lin naturally followed Jin's pace. Bona entered the tent and came out with 2 more backpacks in her hands. She said to Jin, according to Mr. Jin's instructions, there are some simple tools inside, as well as 3 days worth of food and water. Please check them. Opening the backpack, Jin checked it briefly, then handed one of the backpacks to Lin and said to Bona, "No problem, take us to the entrance of the ruins." Mr. Jin, Mr. Lin, please come with me. After saying that, he took Jin and Lin to the entrance of the ruins. Lin, who was following Jin, also opened the items in the backpack and looked at it. In addition to basic water and food, it also contained ropes, a multifunctional military shovel and other supplies. Chapter 38. Following Bona, the three of them were getting closer and closer to the entrance of the ruins. Lin could even feel the breath of evil thoughts in the air, and Jin Fulasi, who was walking in front, looked more and more solemn. Outside the entrance to the ruins, Lin looked at the stairs that went deep into the ground. Evil thoughts visible to the naked eye floated out from inside the ruins. "Both of you, the rest is up to you. I hope your trip goes well and that you bring the exploration team back without any damage." Bona looked at the two of them, the worry in her eyes could not be concealed at all. It was obvious that she was also worried about the exploration team. "Don't worry, we are professionals." Although Jin said it very easily, Lin still felt that Jin must have discovered something unusual, and he just said this to reassure Bona. "Please." After finishing speaking, Puna left. Rin watched Bona leave, turned to Jin, who was looking at the entrance to the ruins, and said, "Should I get rid of my thoughts first, or should we go together?" Jin thought for a moment and said, "Just in case, let's go together." With that said, the two of them took steps together and walked towards the entrance of the ruins. As the two of them continued to go deeper, Lin's perception of the evil thoughts became more and more obvious, and there was even a cold feeling throughout his body. Finally, the two of them saw the entrance to the ruins. At the entrance was a pure black mind energy barrier, completely blocking the appearance behind the barrier. Lin didn't say too many words, and was about to step forward to summon Xiao Baichu to remove the mental energy barrier. And many more. Jin stretched out his hand to stop Lin, walked forward and observed the barrier of mind energy for a while and said, "This seems to be formed by a very strong after-death mind. In terms of the quality of the mind, it can be measured by at least hundreds of people. Condensing this density." Jin turned to look at Lin and said, "Can you get rid of this huge amount of thoughts?" Lin thought for a while and said, "It's okay to eliminate it, but after you finish eliminating it, you may not be able to continue to eliminate it for a while." After thinking for a while, Jin nodded and said, "Open the entrance first, and what happens next depends on the situation. I hope the exploration team is behind the barrier." "Okay." Lin responded, and then summoned Xiao Bai. The moment Jin saw Xiao Bai, a look of interest appeared in his eyes. "Xiao Bai Chu Nian. Surge." Xiao Bai happily walked around in the air and flew towards the black barrier at the entrance. "Surge." After shouting, Xiao Bai opened his mouth towards the black barrier and inhaled, and a large amount of black thought energy flew towards Xiao Bai's mouth. Jin was amazed when he saw this scene. He didn't expect that Lin's method of eradicating thoughts was like this. As Xiao Bai continued to devour, the mental energy barrier continued to become thinner, and even if you looked carefully, you could see the stone gate behind the barrier. Surge. As Xiao Bai's voice appeared, the black barrier blocking the entrance to the ruins finally disappeared completely, and an open door appeared in front of Jin and Lin. "Go back and rest, Xiao Bai." Lin said something and lifted Xiao Bai's summons. He could feel that the thoughts that Xiao Bai swallowed this time were so huge that he almost couldn't swallow them anymore and might fall asleep for a long time. The moment Lin took back Xiao Bai, Jin walked to the gate of the ruins and looked at the portraits and words on the door. Lin knew what Jin was doing, so he didn't bother him and simply waited aside. After reading, "Let's go," Jin informed Lin and walked towards the ruins. Lin didn't ask any more questions. He knew that asking questions on such occasions would offend others. If there was anything he needed to know, Jin would tell him directly. Every 1 meter or so on the wall of the ruins, there are lamps hanging on the wall to provide light, making the lighting equipment brought by Lin and his party completely useless. The two of them remained vigilant and walked towards the interior of the ruins. Different from what Lin imagined, the interior of the ruins did not have the moist feeling underground as imagined, but was inexplicably dry. If you feel carefully, you can even feel the direction of the wind. On both sides of the tomb passage, the surrounding murals have been uninterrupted since entering. Lin could not understand the specific content, but Lin believed that Jin must know what was painted on it. Since Jin did not say anything, it meant that the information above and the two people the task has nothing to do with it. At this time, a fork in the road appeared in front of the tomb passage, and the compartment between the two intersections had a bunch of words written on it that Lin could not understand. Go left. Jin's voice came, and Lin followed Jin's pace without any hesitation. This is the benefit of following a professional expert. The simplest manifestation is that when you encounter a choice, he can accurately tell you the direction and avoid possible fatal dangers. As he continued to advance, Lin felt that the light around him was getting darker and darker, and the coldness became more and more obvious. Take out the miner's lamp in your backpack. Jin rummaged through his backpack and took out a yellow helmet with a lighting fixture on top. After listening to Jin's words, Lin also took out the lamp. The moment he turned it on, the high-power light bulb illuminated the road ahead clearly. Jin tested the light and turned off the power of the light fixture on his head, obviously feeling that one was enough to face the situation at hand. As the two of them went deeper, a glimmer of light appeared in front of the dark road, and they walked over slowly with increased vigilance. Lin turned off the lights above his head. Different from the passage just now, the visibility was very high. He turned to look at Jin, who was already exploring the items inside. The place where Lin was at this time was similar to a tomb, but there was only one coffin, and the rest, apart from unknown portraits on the wall, were some burial objects. These funerary objects are all made of wood and have basically been corroded by time. Lin followed Jin in a circle. Except that the coffin was open, the rest was of no reference value at all. Standing next to the coffin, Lin analyzed secretly, the coffin should have been opened by Biscay and the others, so are they deep in the ruins now? Or did they not encounter danger and chose to continue exploring? Jin turned around and looked at the dead body lying in the coffin and said, Lian, the exploration team must have gone inside. There are signs that this body has been turned over. The position of the hand of the dead body has shifted a lot. The exploration team should have obtained the key to the depth here. Key? Lin said in confusion, he really didn't understand where Jin discovered the problem. Jin studied the texture of the coffin and explained, since we came in, we didn't find any corpses or burial objects. We only encountered this tomb when we got here. Then Jin asked, do you remember the fork in the road we encountered before? Lin nodded. After all, he just passed it, how could he forget it? Jin stroked the texture of the coffin and said, what is written on the compartment at the fork in the road is the ancient common language of I-Chen continent, which roughly means, guardian. Your perseverance is the Lord's expectation. Companion. Your death it's for the Lord's resurrection. After listening to Jin's words, Lin didn't quite understand what Jin meant after translation. I could only look at Jin, who was still in a research state, hoping that the other party could speak more clearly, preferably in words that I could understand. Chapter 39. Jin stood up, patted the dust on his palms, and explained, generally in ruins, the words left by the builders can point the way for future generations. In this case, based on the information gained from words and experience, it seems to me that the companion should be the person who built this place. After these people completed the construction task here, they could not go out to reveal the information in the ruins. They could only be buried with the owner of the ruins. This was a symbol of loyalty at that time. The so-called guardian should be the direct family member of the clan leader, and he is the kind of person who is extremely trusted and exists as the tomb keeper in the tomb. Then Jin pointed to the dead body in the coffin and said, compare it carefully to see if this person's clothing looks like the people with noble status in the murals at the ruins. Lin nodded, indeed he looked very similar to the main character in the mural. So you chose the left path because those people with noble clothing are on the left side of the picture. Lin suddenly realized what he had experienced along the way and told his guess. Jin Vinian nodded and said, yes, and according to the text, the left side must be the road leading to the interior of the ruins. And the people on the right are probably those who are not qualified to enter the interior for burial, that is, the people who built the outer parts of the ruins. Lin pointed at the ancient corpse and said, so the ancient corpse in front of us is the guardian of the ruins, and it is guarding the key to enter the ruins. I don't know if it's a key, but it must be the key to entering the ruins. Jin said solemnly, generally when encountering this kind of situation, it can be said that the problems faced by the expedition team may be quite serious. Lin asked doubtfully, what problems will we face? Jin organized some words and said, I told you the basic history of Luluk, but I didn't tell you the three most likely crises in the ruins. 3 crises. Lin was completely confused at the moment, but with Jin's current expression and serious tone, he discovered that the ruins Biscay and the others were exploring this time were not as simple as he thought. Yes, there are 3 types of crises, and they are judged based on the value of the ruins, the possibility and danger of facing crises. After speaking, Jin explained, the first type, I call it treasure relics. These relics bury history, money, and valuables at that time. The safest and most terrifying ones are just the remnants from ancient times to the present. Just evil thoughts. Lin nodded. Ordinary people would be lucky if they encountered this kind of ruins, but for Jin, the history inside might be the most important thing. After Jin finished speaking, he continued to explain, the second type is what I call secret relics. This kind of relics can be said to be related to the inheritance of a race. It is full of dangers and uncertainties, which is impossible to imagine. To the dangers you will encounter next. But the rewards obtained after exploration are also extremely huge. If you are lucky, you can harvest some powerful telepathy items, which can change a person's destiny. So you think this relic belongs to the second type? The heritage relic of the Lulak clan? Lin asked doubtfully. No, I think it is the third type. I am telling you this to prepare you mentally. After listening to what I have to say, I hope you can go back outside and wait for me. After all, I am not sure about what may happen next. Keep you safe. Jin's face was solemn, and his tone was even more serious. Seeing Jin like this, Lin couldn't help but feel a little nervous. He didn't expect that this was only his first time entering the ruins, and he would encounter the most dangerous type in Jin's experience. Listen carefully. The third type I'm talking about below is also the most dangerous type among the ruins. Jin said seriously, the third type is sealed ruins. In this kind of ruins, there will be history, treasures, and items with telekinesis abilities. But the most dangerous ones are those sealed objects that have been sealed with the power of the clan. Once the sealed objects are released, unimaginable things will happen, some of which are no less than the disasters brought back from the Dark Continent. After hearing what Jin said, Lin also understood the seriousness of this matter, especially on the same level as the disaster in the Dark Continent. It was scary to think about it. Jin looked at the brooding Lin and did not disturb him. Judging from the information he had received so far, he felt that it was a bit difficult for him to handle it. He only hoped that Lin could return to the stronghold and wait for his news. After thinking for a while, Lin asked doubtfully, Jin, how can you be sure that this is a sealed relic? It's very simple. You know the identity of the tomb guard. If you were the leader of a tribe, would you let your immediate relatives serve as guardians, shouldering endless loneliness and responsibility, and always guard this place? After a pause, Jin continued, the most important thing is that the disappearance of the Lulak clan has made me very confused. Judging from the current situation, all the royal families in the tribe have appeared. It seems that we are far away from the original secret. It's not far either. Thinking about what Jin said, it was true that it was the best choice to leave the ruins now and leave the subsequent rescue mission to Jin, but Lin didn't want to do this. To retreat in the face of a certain danger is equivalent to drawing a line for oneself, and he will only choose to escape when encountering corresponding situations in the future. This is no longer a matter of not being afraid after becoming stronger, but that this person can only do this to this extent, and he can only do this to this extent when encountering things, and he will gradually lose his spirit of challenge. The most important thing is that Lin is very clear that this task is taken over by 2 people. Although it is Jin's idea to retreat now, it can also be regarded as a kind of abandonment. Abandoning a companion out of fear of danger. After this happens, no matter how it happens, Indo can't pass his level. Taking a deep breath, Lin said firmly, Mr. Jin, I will explore with you. If you leave such a dangerous matter to yourself, I can't do that yet. Jin walked up to Lin, patted him on the shoulder and said, don't be burdened, maybe things are not as bad as we thought. Suddenly, Lin seemed to think of something and said, you're not kidding me, are you? Jin laughed haha and said, if you think it is, then it is. But don't let down your guard on our next journey. Lin shrugged helplessly. Apart from being more vigilant, he didn't take Jin's other words to heart. But seeing the excitement on Jin's face, he knew that there must be something Jin thought was very challenging. Sexual stuff. Then the 2 of them walked out of the tomb, and the visibility in the passage was reduced a lot. In order to allow Jin to see the murals on the wall more clearly, Lin turned on the lights above his head and continued to explore the depths of the ruins. Chapter 40. Walking through the corridor of the ruins, Jin checked the murals around him as he walked. Lin also looked at the murals for a long time as he moved forward. Because he didn't have the relevant professional knowledge, he couldn't understand anything. After walking for an unknown amount of time, Lin and Jin reached the end of the corridor, where a heavy stone door blocked their way. Jin stepped forward to check the stone door, rubbed his chin, and said with certainty, this door was closed from the inside. Look, this is the mark of the door closing. Jin pointed to the dust on the ground and said to Lin. Lin reasoned and said, it should be this guy and the others who got the so-called key and opened the stone door, but what exactly did they encounter? Why did they close the door again? Jin knocked on the stone door and said, it is a pure stone door and can isolate the power of thoughts. We must find a way to open it. Lin knew without thinking that Jin definitely did various tests the moment he came into contact with the stone door. If it was a professional matter like opening the stone door, Lin believed that Jin definitely had a way. Jin, what can you do? I think this guy and the others are definitely behind this door. They must have encountered some danger and were afraid of endangering the outside world, so they closed this stone door. Lin looked at Jin who was observing the stone door, wondering how Jin would finally open the door. Jin walked around the stone door a few times, knocking on various places. After a while, he stopped and thought on the spot. Lin saw Jin thinking about a solution and did not disturb Jin who was thinking. Suddenly, Jin seemed to have thought of something, his eyes flashed and he said, I do have a way that is not a solution. It's not a solution? What do you mean? Lin asked doubtfully. Jin rubbed his chin, organized his words and said, I just tested it with Nian. This stone gate has an isolating effect on Nian to a certain extent. Then Jin's voice changed and he said, then what do you think is the reason why Shimin can isolate thoughts? Lin thought for a while and said, I can think of 2 reasons. The first is that the material of this stone gate can isolate thoughts, but such a large piece of material that can isolate thoughts is not difficult for a tribe. But it's not that luxurious. The second type is the divine character. Someone has probably carved the divine character for isolation on the back of the door, so this stone gate can isolate the qi. After speaking, Lin asked, I can only think of these 2, I don't know if they are right. Jin Chonglin gave a thumbs up and said, it's a good guess, but I tend to think that someone carved divine characters on the back of the door, because in that distant period, the popularity of divine characters was much higher than it is now. So, what's the method you mentioned? Lin asked the most crucial question, and Jin smiled mysteriously. Jin explained to Lin, usually when encountering this kind of situation, if you want to break through violently, you have to rely on the strengthening system. You can directly blow up the stone door with one punch. This is simple and fast. And I have the ability to do it, but the location of this door is obviously responsible for the main body of this ruins. Once the stone door is destroyed, I think the ruins will collapse accordingly, so since I know that it is the reason for the divine words, then I will the divine word versus the divine word. After Jin finished speaking, he took out a carving knife from his body and started gesticulating towards the stone door, as if he was considering where to start. After listening to Jin's words, Lin began to think, and thought to himself, using divine characters to fight divine characters. This idea has never been mentioned in the original book, so I just want to observe it. Jin seemed to have already had an idea, and taught Lin while taking action. Generally, the range of the effects of divine characters is limited, but we can use multiple divine characters to form a whole to maximize the effect of the divine characters. While explaining to Lin, Jin concentrated on carving the divine characters. Although Lin didn't understand the divine characters, he could still understand Jin's explanation. Although this stone door is engraved with the divine character that isolates Nian, the divine character and Nian can only be said to have a corresponding relationship. After the divine character is inscribed, it will become an independent individual. So when you learn divine characters in the future, you must pay attention. There is an essential difference. Divine characters can be an application of chanting, but divine characters are always divine characters. As Jin spoke, he carved divine characters at key locations on the stone door. Lin did not recognize these divine characters, but from Jin's slightly sweaty face, it was obvious that carving the divine characters in front of him consumed Jin's energy. Very huge. Call. Jin let out a relaxed breath and said slowly, it's finally over. Looking at the stone door covered with divine characters in front of him, Lin wondered, then how do we open it now? Jin smiled slightly and said, you said that since the exploration team is inside and the door is closed from the inside, the stone door in front of us does not have any mechanism that requires a key. Then where do you think the key is? When Lin heard this, he slapped his forehead and exclaimed, the key was not removed from the door at all, or in other words, when Biscay and the others opened the door, the key was already integrated with the door. Jin smiled slightly and said, that's right. Then why don't we just open the door? Why do we still have to go to such trouble to carve the divine characters? Faced with the situation in front of him, Lin really racked his brains and didn't know what Jin Fulis was thinking. He could just open it directly, so why did he spend so much effort? I'll take a break first, just in time to explain it to you. You are very likely to encounter this kind of situation in the future. Jin casually found a place to sit down, and took a few sips of a bottle of water from his backpack. After drinking the water, Jin wiped his mouth and said, from the moment I entered the ruins, my attention was divided into 3 parts. First of all, observe the text on the mural. After all, we know too little about this ruins, and the text on the mural is extremely important. Getting some intelligence based on the murals will be very useful for our exploration and search and rescue. Lin nodded when he heard this. He knew that Jin was right. Judging from the choice of the fork in the road, Jin's knowledge of ancient languages and archaeology played a very important role. If he had taken the wrong path at that time, he might have been wrong. What dangerous things will happen? Jin continued to teach Lin, the second part of my focus is on the main structure of the entire ruins. We entered from underground, which means there must be a key point in the ruins that supports the entire ruins. Speaking of this, Jin pointed to the stone door engraved with divine characters and said, obviously, this is the support point of the ruins. Although I am not sure if there are other supports, we can't afford to bet on this alone. And in my first test, I could feel that this stone door, because it was violently closed from the inside, could no longer experience a second violent opening. After hearing Jin's explanation, Lin understood part of it and asked doubtfully, then why should the word God be engraved on it?